Hello and welcome back to a brand new episode of the Pick a Side podcast. My name is Moran and I'm here with Andrew Velez and Joe Dehls. It's now episode 294. In this episode, we're going to preview both the AFC South and North divisions while also giving our predictions for each team. Finally back to NFL football talk. It's been so long since we've had an episode that's just dedicated to the NFL, but it feels like the perfect time. It's July. The NFL season is nearing.
For sure.
And we have to get these predictions and previews out the way.
Absolutely.
We've been talking about basketball for probably 5 months straight, I would say. Been wanting to not do the show for 5 months. No.
Understandable.
Very excited to be talking about football. It's been a long time. It's so weird going from last year where it was one football, one basketball every week to we really were just talking basketball for like 4 months straight. I think we had the draft. We had a draft episode. But other than that, we have not had a football episode since March, probably, give or take.
Yeah, this is the most locked in I was on basketball, maybe ever in my life.
Yeah.
And so it's been a unusual adjustment going from the NBA back to the NFL because usually it becomes May and I'm locked in, I'm ready. But
football.
Here we are, July, of course, to football, of course. And now here we are in July, finally back to football. Feels good to be back. I feel like I needed this little hiatus from football for me to really miss it. You know what I'm saying?
To treasure it again?
Absolutely.
I feel that.
This season's going to be great, man. Last year wasn't my favorite year by any means. No way, no how. A lot of things didn't go my way. Some things went my way. But this upcoming season, I feel a lot more optimistic, a lot more hopeful. And I'm ready to chop it up.
Facts.
You know, I feel great. I'm coming off a high horse.
For sure.
Coming off the ending of last season. I think I could come here and call myself the NFL king.
Oh, my God.
The Chiefs winning the Super Bowl. Oh, man, predicting things that happened.
Chiefs, Bengals. Who else was he rooting for last year on the top? Who's his other guys?
Just name all the good teams.
Joe Burrow ascended. The only thing I really got wrong was Matt Ryan and Zach Wilson.
And Jalen Hurts.
But
and Tua.
Well, no, Tua I was very right on. System quarterback.
Nothing you were right about.
System quarterback, it is what it is.
I don't know if there was a single statement you were right about.
But the Bengals, I had them beating the Bills in the playoffs. But man, it really doesn't matter.
Is it your first time?
Dude, it's not mine. I don't know what you want me to say.
Mine's on DM.
Here we are, guys. It was my laptop. I apologize.
Fucking rookie, bro.
Usually I have the volume off. I don't know what you want me to say. I was watching some highlights.
Our tour of the NFL is basically like James Harden in the NBA. Every episode.
I don't care.
Every episode.
I love him.
But man, I just think the Chiefs winning the Super Bowl alone was enough to, rave about.
I'll tell you what, man, you needed it
really
after the year before. You needed it after the year before, for sure. Oh, no. Lava hot. The Kansas City Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes.
It is lava hot. You had them missing the playoffs.
Yeah, for understandable
reasons. That's a lava hot take.
Forgot about that.
You know what's crazy, too? After week 2, we don't really talk about this. When we talked about it, who did I have as the MVP? Do you remember that?
Mahomes, I'm assuming.
Refresh my memory.
You know what's funny? Because I remember when we were doing our overreactions of week 1, I had that Mahomes would be the MVP. But you all was like, Drew, you can't do that. That's my overreaction.
It's also not an overreaction. It's Mahomes.
No, it wasn't. But I also was talking about them missing the playoffs.
True.
So that it's not an overreaction. Maybe? Isn't the hot?
It was an overreaction because they smoked Arizona, and Drew was like, maybe they don't need elite
Arizona
receivers.
dog
Facts.
shit.
And I was just like, yeah, he's gonna be MVP. That's why he really never gave me shit on Mahomes because he knew I was just like, all right, I'm respecting Mahomes.
Listen, the season before,
but the Chiefs, I genuinely thought their roster was bad, and Mahomes obviously.
I thought they were gonna take a step back for sure.
Like I wasn't expecting them to go Super Bowl and win the whole thing.
Neither.
Are you kidding me?
I was thinking about that today. I was like, because I think I had the Chiefs at 11 wins. I had them tied with the Broncos, and I was like, how did I not see that? I'm thinking like, oh, Tyreek left, and that's why I was like, oh, like maybe I could justify it, but never again.
Wide receivers. They had
all
Marquez
year.
Valdez-Scantling, the new show on Netflix called Quarterback. It gave me a lot of respect to put on Marquez Valdez-Scantling's name. Obviously, a lot more smart because you really don't hear from the wide receivers unless they're like the superstar ones. A lot of film that he watches, he goes to Patrick Mahomes. He's like, listen, I have this mismatch. Come see me. You'll see me on the double move. I'll be open over the top. One of the next plays, the next drive. So, yeah, some respect to Marquez Valdez. He had some really solid moments. Juju's another one. These just aren't guys that weren't moving the needle for me.
At all.
And then they ended up winning the whole damn thing.
In 2022, you guys got it. The Rams won the Super Bowl. You guys double-teamed me on that take.
Ow.
No, we double-teamed
But this
hard,
past
for sure.
season, it was a triple team. And I handled the triple team. And I got to the basket and I laid it up in the cup.
Fuck the Eagles.
That's what it was.
You handled the triple team?
And in the offense, if you guys don't remember, I told you guys that even if they lost Tyreek Hill, MVS going to stretch that field.
Don't do that.
I said
Mahomes
that.
is
He
just
going to
great.
stretch that field.
MVS was mid.
Come on. We have a major announcement to make. So we are dropping our merch soon. You guys can see us wearing the Pick a Side shirts on the show right now. And listen, we're going to give you guys we're going to do a giveaway. Comment your shirt size in the comment section down below.
Yep.
We are going to raffle you guys off, and whoever wins is going to get free merch sent to their house.
How many winners are we going to give? I'm feeling generous. Why don't we do 3 winners?
Let's do 3 winners.
I think 3 winners is a great number.
That's valid.
Yeah.
And these are a true fit because I'm an XL. Sometimes get an XL doesn't fit me right. This XL, it fits me like a fucking glove.
cozy.
And you know what's great about these shirts too is that I'm on a chubbier side. So sometimes shirts aren't stretchy. These shirts are great quality.
Yep.
I agree.
You're going to get these and be like, wow, they're not Gildon quality. They are great quality. And I stretched out the XL. I'm feeling very loose. I feel like I'm wearing a little 2XL right now. It feels loose. It fits my body nice. And we're going to pick 3 winners in the comments. So just comment your size in the comment section down below to enter. And we'll raffle you guys off and we'll do it live on a Patreon episode to see who wins.
I like that. I like that.
Shout out. We just got back from Summer League as well. Shout out all the people who showed us love.
No doubt.
You know, we got, especially that first day, we got recognized a bunch. We were at Through the Wire show. We got recognized there.
That was gas.
Shout out to all the people who, you know, set us up to us. And if you want to hear stories from Vegas, sign up for the Patreon.
That's a fact.
Next Patreon episode, we're talking all about Vegas, what we did there. You know, so good time.
We got some footage from Vegas too. That probably should go up on the Patreon relatively soon. Got to send that to John.
John. Let him
John has a rough cut of the vlog.
He does?
Yeah, he
does. He doesn't have
already.
any of my videos.
He doesn't have any of mine either. So
You guys got to send it to him. The rough cut was good. It was a good rough cut. But, you know, we'll make sure it's
last shout out I
crafted
want to
to
give.
perfection.
Shout out to my guy Paul Murray for this cute little nursing tag, man. I'll tell you what, I opened it up and you said it was something nursing related, so I wasn't sure what to expect. Maybe like a pin because that's what my mom got me. But this is fire. This is one of those that you use to put your ID on, and it says Pick a Side on it. So this was really cool of you. So thanks, bro. Appreciate you.
Let's get into the first topic of the show.
Let's go.
We're going to be giving our AFC North predictions after we preview these teams. But unlike previous years where we've gone down a lot and just preview each team, we're going to do comparisons. We're going to compare the 2 teams that are closest to each other within a division. And those 2 teams in the AFC North, because that's what we're doing today, are the Ravens and the Bengals. Now, which one of these teams has a better chance to dethrone the Kansas City Chiefs this upcoming season?
You know how much I hate this question because the answer is the Bengals. If we're talking about just who is going to dethrone the Chiefs, they've done it.
Bro, the last time the Ravens played the Chiefs, who won?
Yeah, shout out to Clyde for fumbling, for sure.
Shit was lit.
But because the question, like you said, we're not just doing, you know, Ravens overview, Bengals overview, whatever. We're having topics within these little previews. And of course, Joel is going to go and say who's going to dethrone the Chiefs because the Bengals already did it. They beat the Chiefs already to go to the Super Bowl 2 seasons ago. Joe Burrow always plays good against the Kansas City Chiefs. So the answer is the Bengals. And I don't want to make it that easy because the Ravens have a really good team. And last year, the Burrow Lamar, you had me beat. Burrow's got it. He got it last year. But, hey, Lamar's coming. He's not going to stop either. He's fully healthy. He got his bag. He got a new OC.
That's a fact.
He's got his weapons.
Talk to him.
So it's time you start this no-arm Lamar. The back and forth between Lamar and, he's a great quarterback. No-arm Lamar.
No, bro, whatever. That's the old one. It's come on, Lamar.
Come on, Lamar. So it's time for you, Joel, specifically to pick a damn side on Lamar. And the way I see this team shaping up, the way I see this offense shaping up, there's only one side to pick.
You know, Dehls, I don't know where you've been recently. I've given Lamar Jackson his respect. Whenever we talk about the Ravens, I give them their respect. There's a reason why I'm the most unbiased analyst in the world.
Wow.
When we talk about the team that has the best chance
to
dethrone, it's self-titled.
Word.
There's a reason why I'm picking this team to dethrone the Chiefs, and it's because I'm unbiased. And it's the Cincinnati Bengals, baby. And you want to know why it's the Bengals? And the nerve of you. Me disrespecting Lamar, you've been disrespecting Joey B. He's been disrespecting Joey B.
Have we been disrespecting Joey B or been speaking truth about him? Oh, he's at worst a top 4 quarterback in the National Football League. At worst, that's disrespect allegedly. And we tell the truth about his playoff success and we're apparently hating? When I say that he's had 2 good games in the playoffs.
5 wins in the playoffs.
congratulations. Hey, I thought
Mark
winning
Sanchez
wasn't
is 4-2.
No, bro. Winning isn't a quarterback stat.
Don't you do that.
Winning isn't a quarterback stat. Listen, I give him his credit against the Bills, and I give him his credit against KC last year. 2 seasons ago, I should say. But last year against the Kansas City Chiefs, he was mid. He was less than mid if we're being completely transparent. Against Tennessee, we had conversations about it. Evan McPherson was probably the MVP of that game. Joey B had a great throw to the sideline. No, he had a great throw to the sideline to Jamar Chase.
Wide open.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah.
He's not supposed to throw the ball?
No,
is he
he
supposed to hold on to the ball?
He threw for a lot of yards. I believe it was like 300, 350 around that. No touchdowns. The game against the Raiders. All right, game. How many touchdowns did he have there? Let's talk about the Super Bowl, right? Because his numbers got super inflated because of a Mickey Mouse 75-yard touchdown to T. Higgins.
That's a fact.
So I'm just here to tell the truth. Joe Burrow is great. He's amazing. He is a top 4 quarterback. But let's not talk about him like he's the greatest thing since sliced bread. That's all I want. That's all I'm trying to do. I'm not hating. I'm trying to tell the truth. I'm trying to be, as he says, unbiased.
You know, the game is about winning. And you may look at the stats.
Ironic.
You may look at the
winning
stats.
Isn't a quarterback stat. That's the only thing I just want to make sure that we're understood of.
You may look at the stats and be like, "Oh, the passer rating wasn't 100, so that's why I didn't have a great game."
You told me 90, and I won his low to 90. I was like, okay, let's see. He's got multiple games under 90.
You want to know
against the Kansas City Chiefs that he supposedly owns.
3-1 against them.
No doubt. But in the biggest game of the season, he crumbled.
That was the
Who's the greatest quarterback of all time?
Tom Brady. Probably, most likely. Peyton Manning's got to be in that conversation.
Guess what his passer rating is in playoffs all time?
Let's just guess 94.
92.
89.8.
Okay.
Different era.
Which means that there are quarterbacks like Drew Brees, like Payton that have better passer ratings than Brady. But ultimately,
who cares about
you'll
pass
remember
rating?
for
You're the one that
moments.
asked me. You said, what was his passer rating in those games? I just gave him
And
to
when
you.
we talk about Joe Burrow versus the Titans, most sacked quarterback ever in a win. Quarterbacks that were sacked that many times in games before have all lost. He was sacked 9 times, still found a way to win the game. Versus the Raiders, still found a way to win the game. Versus the Chiefs, AFC Championship, found a way to win the game. Came back from double digits in that game to win the game.
That was legendary
He
performance.
did his thing. And this past season versus the Bills, in the snow,
elite.
Did his thing.
Elite.
He wasn't great against the Chiefs in the AFC Championship this past season versus the Ravens.
Dude, what happened to the Ravens where he got saved?
Versus the Ravens.
By Hubbard, right?
He almost got it done.
How crazy is that?
Let's not give respect to Baltimore because they do a great job of disguising their coverages.
Baltimore,
Mike McDonald is one of the most innovative defensive play callers in the game. And sometimes we look at quarterbacks through the lens of, well, if you're not giving me 350 and 3 touchdowns, you didn't have a great game. A quarterback is supposed to control the tempo and give his team a chance to win. And you can say, while the Ravens may have limited Joe Burrow and the Bengals offense, they limited the offense.
20 points.
What you can say is that Joe Burrow didn't leave any play on the field missed. He didn't. He did exactly what the defense was giving him, and that's what the great quarterback does. Able to adjust. I look at the Bengals. They're 3-1 all time against Mahomes. They're 3-1 all time against Kansas City. Joe Burrow.
Correct.
More wins against him than any quarterback in the NFL. The Bengals have made back-to-back AFC Championship games, and the improvement and adjustment I saw from Cincinnati last season gave me more belief in this team moving forward. Last season, the Bengals started 2-3. There was panic, and the biggest reason for that was because defenses adjusted to their big play relying offense by playing more too high. In week 1, the Steelers used too high 31% of the time. In week 2, the Cowboys used it 37% of the time. And Burrow through week 5 ranked 31st in air yards on early downs against too high. And the Bengals were the worst offense against too high coverage. Now, the reason why too high is so difficult to scheme up against is because defenses are able to play different coverages while having the same pre-snap look. When you start off with too high, that can be a cover 2. That can be a cover 4. But if a safety drops down post-snap, that can be a cover 1. That can be a cover 3. So we're talking about 4 different coverages disguised in one in a pre-snap look. And that's why it's so hard to go up against. But this is where the adjustment came. Post-week 5, Bengals were primarily a shotgun offense, number 1 in pass rate in the NFL, and had a 65% success rate against too high. Burrow targeted running backs twice as much as he did. the year previously. He lowered his sack rate by half. Cut the sack rate down in half. His biggest weakness in 2021 became a strength of his in 2022. And Burrow finished number 1 in touchdowns against too high, despite being the worst quarterback against it through the first 5 weeks in the NFL.
The greats adjust.
And that type of quarterback maturation is why, to me, he's easily the second best quarterback in the league. This maturation put less pressure on the offensive line, which last year was still 30th in pass block win rate in the NFL. This offensive line wasn't anything to rave about, and it helped out the running game tremendously by seeing later boxes. And you know what speaks to Joe Burrow's greatness that much more?
What?
The Bengals use the lowest rate of play action and the second lowest rate of pre-snap motion, which means the Bengals were telling teams, we're not disguising our offense. You know what we're doing. You can't stop our receivers. And guess what? Joe Burrow is going to pick your ass apart every time. And that's exactly what he did. 39 touchdowns last year. Back-to-back years throwing 39 touchdowns. While the Bengals have lost key pieces,
unless you're talking
Von
about,
Bell,
are you counting
Jesse Bates.
Are you counting playoffs as well?
Just in total.
Okay. Oh,
yeah.
He had 4 rushing also. Impressive.
The Bengals lost Jesse Bates and Von Bell. I think those will be huge losses in the safety and the secondary. The offensive line improved by adding Orlando Brown. You now have Orlando Brown and Lyle Collins on opposite sides. That's a big upgrade from Jonah Williams. And Nick Scott is a solid replacement at safety. He's going to be playing primarily deep. When you have, as an elite of a trio, is Burrow, Chase, and T. Higgins, all on rookie contracts still, which means you're able to have a good roster and solid one around them. Lou Anarumo is still there, who I thought should have been a head coach. The Bengals are the most likely team to progress again this upcoming season because they have that continuity. The Ravens, I give them their respect. I do. But we have to see how this offense looks like. There's not going to be a big of an adjustment for the Bengals because they know what they're going to do. The only thing that's going to stop them is if the injury bug bites. That's it. But if they're healthy, I don't see any team being more of a threat to KC than the Bengals this upcoming season. I got the Bengals winning the AFC North once again.
Interesting. I thought we had conversations that you believe this was Baltimore's year.
I changed my mind on that.
Got it.
Because I look at Baltimore, and there's 3 reasons why I don't trust them. The defensive line is a major weak point. They had a 30% pressure rate last year against opposing quarterbacks, which was the 5th lowest rate. And the defensive line got worse. They lost a 9.5 sack guy in Justin Houston. You're counting on Tyus Bowser, Michael Pierce, Broderick Washington, Justin Matabuki, Owe, and David Ajabo. He's a wild card because he was a 3rd-round pick, so we'll see if he's going to contribute. But that's a wild card. There's no real standout player. And then the secondary, outside of Marlon Humphrey at corner, you're trusting a lot of average to below average guys. Rock Ya-Sin, Jalen Armour-Davis, Demarion Williams. And last year, the Ravens were 2-6 against teams with a winning record. And this year, Baltimore plays 12 games versus teams that had a winning record
How many of those games
last
without
season.
Lamar?
Some of them were, some of them weren't. Because they lost to the Giants, they lost to the Jaguars. So those were 2 losses right there. And I'm forgetting the other ones they lost to, but some were definitely without Lamar. There's no doubt. And this year, the defense is going to face the 3rd toughest schedule of offenses. And I think that I don't know if they're going to be up to the challenge. I believe in the Ravens offense this year. I think that Lamar is going to have his first 4,000 passing yard season. This is the best wide receiver talent he's ever played with. And it's a big jump from what you had in Greg Roman, who Greg Roman was running 21 and 22 personnel the majority of the time, which means there was like a lack of receivers on the field because they didn't trust any receivers. Listen, I respect what the Ravens have done this offseason, but the Bengals are just going to keep on elevating because that's what they've done every single year in the Joe Burrow era.
It's been proven that when Lamar Jackson's on the field, the Baltimore Ravens simply are a dominant football team. It's been proven that when Lamar Jackson's healthy, it is Lamar Jackson's division because both times that he's gone out, he has left number 1 in the division. Now, of course, it's been unfortunate that we've seen him injured, and of course, the Bengals have ultimately been able to overtake the Baltimore Ravens for the division both years. Now, the way I look at it is the Bengals secondary still does worry me. Do I believe in their front 7? For sure, but you have Awuzie, You have Mike Hilton. These are two guys that you can trust. Other than that, the loss of Jesse Bates is one that I'm not going to ignore. Their safeties definitely are in question. They did just draft one in Dax Hill. That's the concern if you are a Bengals fan, because you're not concerned about the offense, because you have Jamar Chase, you have T. Higgins. That's going to be successful regardless, of course. Joe Mixon this past season was probably the most, let me say, I don't want to say ineffective because, of course, statistically it was there, but what's the word I'm looking for, Joel? Because obviously you did tweet about it. What's the word I'm looking
inefficient.
for? Inefficient. Thank you. That's the exact word that I was looking for. Yes, you did bring in Chase Brown. Chase Brown's one of those guys that you look at that could be sneaky. I 100% agree with your opinion on that. Give Joel a follow, Joel V. Moran. Now, why I look at Baltimore and why I am extremely intrigued at this is because now Lamar Jackson is supposedly 100% healthy. Yes, there is that concern that he can be injured. But now we have some weapons that we can have some fun with. And Mark Andrews isn't the only one drawing attention, because last year we saw Mark Andrews be probably his most unproductive that we've seen him with in the NFL really since probably his rookie season. And that was primarily because now there was no more Hollywood Brown. There was really no outside threat. Rashad Bateman missed some time. He was obviously missed some time late in the season also. It was just a mess at the wide receiver skill position just as a whole. Dobbins came back towards the end. Looked all right, just looked a little bit hobbled, just looked like he was coming back from injury, and he was working himself through that. Also ended up having some good statistical games down the stretch, but he didn't look himself. Maybe we look towards year two and coming back for him to be a little bit more productive and a little bit more cleaner, especially with Lamar Jackson. But now we have Odell Beckham now in this wide receiver room. That's a little bit of a question just because he did just miss a year of football. Now Zay Flowers gets drafted. I know you love yourself some Zay Flowers. Rashad Bateman, although he has struggled to stay healthy, he did play a good portion of his first year, and then, of course, last year he struggled with injury, but he should be back now and ready to go. Now Mark Andrews is not drawing doubles. He's not drawing the main attention of potentially a cornerback playing some defense. The field opens up for Mark Andrews. Now he becomes a threat again. We already mentioned it. Now he has an offensive coordinator that is going to be primarily predicated on improving Lamar Jackson's passing. We don't need to worry about his rushing. He can improvise. He's one of the best, arguably the best rushing quarterback in the history of this game. Yes, absolutely. The offensive line is really, really strong. I look at this defense. Yes, I agree with you. The front line's not the best. Michael Pierce, though, not a name to scoff at. Roquan Smith, one of the best linebackers in this game. That's really where their money is. That's where they're going to make a majority of the strength of this defense in that linebacking core. And then the safeties. You mentioned it already. You talked about their corners being a question, but of course Marcus Williams is a great safety in this game, and Kyle Hamilton was extremely impressive as safety for his rookie season, ranked number 1 in PFF the safety position last season. So to me, I look at the Bengals. I understand that they are a great unit. I just understand when Lamar Jackson's on the field, it's their division. And you talked about health for the Bengals. Let's talk about health for the Ravens. It'll be theirs, and I think that they're probably the Chiefs' biggest threat, for the sole reason that I feel like you are going to see an improved Lamar Jackson in the passing game, and that's really why that's the separator between the two for me.
And we talk about their defense a lot. Last year, while they got Roquan at the end, it definitely improved. No doubt. But it wasn't always because they had one dominant unit, right? I know you're a big fan of EPA. Their rush EPA was 11th. Their dropback EPA was 22nd. So it's not like either of those units were really dominant. Where they were dominant was in the red zone. Only 48% of their drives that ended up in the Ravens' end zone ended up being touchdowns, which was 4th in the NFL, which led to them having a top 3 scoring defense. So they've allowed yards, specifically last season, between the 20s. But once they get to that red zone, they have a really good job of holding teams to 3 points instead of 7. So I know on paper, maybe their defense doesn't look like it has all the all-pros outside of a couple of guys, but I think that really comes where coaching comes into play.
And I'm glad you mentioned some stats because I almost forgot to share some. Of course, talking about their defense, in the last 6 weeks of the season, the Ravens defensive unit ranked 5th in yards per play, 3rd in DVOA, and 2nd in EPA per play. Opponents only averaged 192 pass yards with a 4 touchdown to 3 interception ratio and 3.8 yards per carry. This defensive unit was elite towards the second half of the season, and I only look for this unit to continue that success.
And I like how all of the receivers complement each other, right? Rashad Bateman showed in his first 2 seasons he could win over the top. He has the game-breaking speed, but he could also win underneath. You have Zay Flowers, who ran in the 4.4, 4.42. He's a bit smaller, but he's someone who get over the top. He showed that in his college tape. And then you have Odell, who could kind of do it all. Now, all of these guys have their own question marks. Odell and Rashad Bateman with injury concerns. Zay Flowers, rookie year, a bit undersized at 5'9". But I think Todd Monken coming in from Georgia, and not to disrespect Greg Roman, but his offense is run based, right? He's not out there really doing anything that over the top in terms of passing the ball. But I think Todd Monken coming in could almost unlock a new level to this offense. You mentioned it. You think this could be Lamar's first season throwing for 4,000 plus rushing passing yards. So I'm looking really at those three receivers. But another guy that could be a sleeper on this team, we might talk about a little bit later, is Isaiah Likely, who we know Mark Andrews, the tight end one on this team. He's going to get a majority of the snaps. But I still believe the Ravens are going to put out their best players on the field. And one of their best players is going to be Isaiah Likely. He didn't get a ton of opportunity last year. He only had 3 games of 50% or more snaps. But in 2 of those games, week 8 against Tampa, which I think Mark Andrews missed, 6 receptions, 77 yards and a touchdown. And week 18, where Mark Andrews didn't play, 8 catches for 103 yards. He's 6'4", so a bit undersized for a tight end, but 6'4", around 240. He's athletic. He's going to get on the field, and he's going to get a lot of looks. And it's definitely another weapon because all the receivers are just a bit smaller. Odell, Bateman, none of these guys are huge outside of Mark Andrews. So I'm looking at him as someone who could also kind of reshape this offense.
And I mentioned Dax Hill being the one that was drafted and made a mistake. I was talking about DJ Battle, who they recently just drafted. Dax Hill the year before.
Yeah,
Dax Hill
Dax
really
Hill,
got
no, he was drafted last year. So
allegedly,
I know what you
he's supposed to be the starter for this upcoming season, though. That'll be interesting to see, of course, because you lose Jesse Bates. That's one of the leaders of that defense. That's going to be an adjustment period.
I think the Bengals have done a great job preparing for departures. Dax Hill, first-round pick last year.
Yep.
They drafted Miles Murphy, edge rusher out of Clemson, in the first round this past draft.
Boy.
And the defensive line, we know Trey Hendrickson is a mainstay, but Sam Hubbard, they could lose next season. So they're doing a great job at finding players in the draft and filling those positional value needs for eventual departures. Now, listen, the Ravens defense, when they acquired Roquan Smith, was elite. It was nothing short of elite. And I think early on in the season, we saw Mike McDonald tinker with a lot of disguises, and that's why we saw a lot of busted coverages early on in the season. The game that comes to mind is the game against Miami, where they let up 3 to 4 busted coverages, and they let the Dolphins come back. Throughout the season, the Ravens played more discipline. But I firmly believe that the difference maker for the Ravens this season, if they're going to win the division, is going to be their offense.
Agreed.
I think Lamar Jackson has a chance to have the best season of his career. And that's saying something, because he was the 2019 unanimous MVP.
He was OD.
But listen, this is the best wide receiver talent Lamar Jackson has ever played with.
By far.
J.K. Dobbins, if he stays healthy, can have a top 10 running back season, if not higher. He's that great. He averages about 5+ yards per carry.
That's
on his career.
Yeah, and it's also predicated on the fact that whoever is the starting running back for the Baltimore
Gus
Ravens
Edwards also averages 5 yards per carry.
They're going to have success.
Yeah.
And the offensive line is a top 5 unit in football. Now, last season, this is an eye-opening, eye-popping number in a negative way. The Ravens used 11 personnel, which means that they had 3 wide receivers or more on the field, 12% of their offensive plays.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
The NFL's average use of 11 personnel last season was 61%.
Yeah, that's crazy.
In the last 10 years, no other team has used 11 personnel 20% or less of the time. The Ravens' use of 3 wide receivers on the field was historically low, and that's because they don't have wide receivers they can trust. Most of their personnel groupings were 22 and 21 personnel, 2 running backs, 2 tight ends, and 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers. But Greg Roman used these personnel groupings because the wide receiver talent was not there. Since 2018, the most snaps of wide receiver for the Ravens, Willie Snead in 2018, Willie Snead in 2019, Hollywood Brown in 2020 and 2021, and this past season, it was Demarcus Robinson. And they have been 31st
shout out to John, man.
in wide receiver spending since 2019. And the wide receivers they've went out and got have been Sammy Watkins, Demarcus Robinson, Dez Bryant, Deshaun Jackson during the middle of the season. So they haven't done a great job at surrounding Lamar with talent to use 11 personnel groupings. But this year, Todd Monken, it's going to be spread. It's going to be 11 personnel. They're going to abuse it. And teams within the division in the AFC North are below average against 11 personnel when they face that offensively. So that can be something that the Ravens have an advantage on. And that's why I think that Lamar Jackson is going to have the best passing season of his career. I think it's going to be 4,000 yards. I think it's going to be 30 touchdowns. The only thing that can hold him back is injury. The last 2 seasons, his injuries have been in the pocket. They have not been on rushes.
Yep.
So that's the only thing that can hold him back. But the offense is what I look at, and I think can be game-changing. The defense, we know what it's going to be. It's going to be steady, if anything. At worst, it's going to be steady. It's going to be an average unit. I think they'll be a great unit. But really, it's this offense that I'm looking at, and I think if Lamar Jackson truly has his best passing season, he's going to be in contention for MVP next year.
Don't forget, when he was healthy last year, 8-3, not number 1 in the division, but number 1 in the AFC before he went down to injury.
But ultimately, it's still the Bengals to lose.
It's not.
Well, when you're talking specifically about the Chiefs, who's dethroning,
Yeah, that's fair.
3-1 against
He
Mahomes
knew
is
how he
nuts.
was predicated.
Yes,
the
I know.
question. But that's why I ignored it.
Yeah.
I ignored it.
We're not
Because of course
answering the
no.
So
question.
you don't have the Bengals winning the AFC North.
I
I
don't.
don't want to spoil it. We're not doing our predictions yet.
Oh, I understand. You know, it's a little.
I'm here
spoiler.
for spoiling.
It's a
The
little,
answer's no.
it's a little
You go
sprinkle.
1-5, not 5-1. I bet.
It's 4-1 actually, because there's only 14.
Well,
in
I
the
was just
division.
talking about top fives.
Bozo. That's come on. You know that's not true. You know that's not true.
We say you love spoiling.
Well, just for today.
Listen, Dehls, last year you picked the Ravens. You almost thought you got me. And
Stay healthy.
in the first 5 weeks,
It's unfair.
in the first 5 weeks, I remember after week
Oh,
one,
after week 1, I was in my bag.
when
It was
Joe
late.
Burrow threw 3 interceptions, I think it was 4.
I knew that was my only chance, I'll be honest. I knew Burrow was going to do that all year.
Oh, my goodness. You were so excited. But then Joey B came out of nowhere. Listen,
A
Came
loss
out
for
of
the
nowhere.
Ravens. A loss for the Ravens too. Ben Powers. That's a big loss.
yeah, Joe Burrow is still, to me, the second best quarterback in the NFL.
Where'd you
The
have
way
Lamar?
he processes him,
Where'd you have Lamar? 'Cause you just
Lamar
dropped
is
your QB ranks.
6'7". Lamar 6'7" for me.
Joe Burrow.
The way
man.
Joe Burrow processes
Number
the
2.
field,
This is so crazy.
the way he processes the game. Listen, he doesn't have phenomenal, exceptional arm strength, but all of his weaknesses he's cleaned up from last season.
Agreed.
And this offensive line, I think, got a tad bit better. We'll see how it looks. Because last year they still were a below average unit, one of the worst units in football on pass block win rate. But this year, with Joe Burrow improving in sack rate, Joe Burrow improving against too high, being one of the best quarterbacks against it, it's not even going to matter if Joe Mixon's inefficient, because he can be inefficient all he wants. But ultimately, Joe Burrow's going to carry this offense, and he's going to make it a top unit in the league. And that's why, I just got the Bengals winning the division.
They also want Joe Mixon to take a pay cut, and reportedly Joe Mixon doesn't want to take a pay cut. It seems unlikely that he gets cut because they're a team trying to win a championship, and Joe Mixon's still the best running back on this roster. And Samaje Perine, who was their third down back last year, is on Denver now, brought in Chase Brown, as you mentioned, or maybe Drew mentioned. But I don't think they'll be able to get away with Chase Brown as their only running back, so I'm still expecting Mixon on the team.
Yeah, I think Mixon will have a big workload early on.
Yeah.
I am expecting Chase Brown to take over, though.
You think so?
I think he will take over eventually. I think he will. I
Listen,
think
I
Joe
won't be
Mixon's
upset.
not the same, man. He's just not the same.
He's not.
It's like Dalvin Cook.
He hasn't been the same
Jesus
the last
Christ.
2 seasons. I would say more so when they realized, oh shit, Jamar Chase and T. Higgins,
Yeah.
this is the
Let's
way
throw the
that we
ball.
win football games. Then we saw Joe Mixon kind of take the back seat, not be as effective. But then, of course, this past season, definitely inefficient's the word to use when you talk about Joe Mixon's
The next 2 teams in the AFC North, the Steelers and the Browns.
This is an easy conversation. For
Now,
me to
it's a
have.
tale of 2 teams.
No.
The Steelers have a foundation that you trust.
Yep.
You know at worst they'll be an 8-win team.
Probably 9.
The Browns are a team that, with the talent, is out of this world.
It's undeniable.
we understand the talent exists. But, I was doing some thinking. And
Maybe that's why he wasn't as excited when I asked him the question that I asked prior to the show, if they're a top 5 talented roster.
when it comes to the Browns, ever since 2018, it has been their year. They have an influx of talent on the roster, and I know most of it can be attributed to the quarterback just not being up to par.
Yeah, because Baker's obviously
He's one of the worst quarterbacks in the league.
This guy
As a starter,
man.
he's my 32nd ranked starter in the league.
shameless.
What do you mean? It's a year-to-year. It's a year-to-year league.
I don't.
It's a year-to-year league. Ever since 2018, we have looked at the Browns as a team that could contend for a Super Bowl and make a deep playoff run. There have been people super high on the Browns. And for me, I understand the hype. It's a great coach, elite offensive line. They have enough weapons at wide receiver this year, more than others with Amari, DPJ, and Elijah Moore. I love David Njoku. The running game with Nick Chubb is always going to be elite, and they have a good defense. But with that being said, I think this year is going to show us whether or not, in hindsight, the quarterback position is what's holding this team back, or if there's just some inherent bad luck that goes on with this team. For me, last year they struggled because of quarterback play, especially down the stretch from week 12 onward when Deshaun Watson came back. Jacoby Brissett was better than Deshaun last year. I think Deshaun will go back to a top 10 level this upcoming season. And their run defense ranked 32nd in rush EPA. And they had inexperience at the corner position. Denzel Ward was phenomenal. Greg Newsome was phenomenal. Moran Emerson got targeted a lot, and he was really the guy that teams would pick apart, but he did hold up his own and held up well.
Very good for a rookie.
But I look at the Browns. If they have Deshaun playing at the top 10 level, I mentioned the weapons they added at receiver. The defense, they made some great additions in Dalvin Tomlinson, who had a 16.5%, Dalvin Tomlinson in 16.5% of his run defense snaps, it resulted in a tackle, which means I think their run defense will improve. Zadarius Smith, Juan Thornhill, Okoronkwo, they have Myles Garrett on there, was one of the best defensive players in the league. This team should make the playoffs and be a real threat. But will they? That's the real question, because the Browns have been a team that we've looked at as a threat for a couple years now. Not for the last 2 years, but before that. I think from 2019 to 2020, we looked at them as that. Will the Browns really be that true threat? Was Deshaun Watson that missing piece? Because they have a lot of invested into him, and if he doesn't pan out, this is going to be a disaster for Cleveland.
Yeah, these two teams feel really polar opposite to me. You have the Browns, who have the high upside, below floor. They might have the largest range of outcomes, where if they get 7 wins, I wouldn't be surprised. If they got 12 wins, I wouldn't be surprised if everything goes right. And you have the Steelers, who I was down on them last year. I said this is going to be the first year Tom doesn't get that over 500 record, and I was wrong. By the skin of their teeth, they got 9-8. But it does feel like their upside is limited. And a big reason because of that has to do with the roster as a whole. I do think the Browns are a more talented roster, but it's also quarterback play. Deshaun Watson last season, you go and look at his numbers, by far the worst of his career. I mean, completing 58% of his passes. He's averaging less than 200 yards per game, 7 touchdowns to 5 interceptions, a quarterback rating of 38.3, which was bottom 6 in the league. But you also have to remember, this is a guy who didn't play football for basically 2 seasons, right? So when you go back, and I was watching some of it, I went back and watched his best games. It was Bengals. I forgot what the other game was. And a lot of the things... Maybe it was Washington. Yeah, Bengals get like 290 yards. Every other game was like 220 or less. A lot of it, I think, should be expected. He was inaccurate. He looked hesitant. He wasn't playing with that same sort of Deshaun swagger and confidence. He really didn't let plays develop. He had by far his lowest air yards per attempt at 7.1 every single season. Before that was like 8.5 minimum. So I think a lot of the time he wasn't feeling confident in the pocket or not letting the plays develop and wanting to get the ball out. So he either didn't get hit or he didn't want to take negative plays. And really one of his biggest positives with his time in Houston was his ability to extend plays and make plays outside the pocket. And you didn't see that as much at his time when he was with the Browns this past season. But I have a hard time believing that Deshaun could go from a top 5 quarterback, a top 3 quarterback, honestly, his last season in Houston, and you just forget how to play football at that level. I think the biggest thing for him is really just getting his feet wet again, having a full training camp, having the preseason, and getting into stride. Because you have to remember, he's going from, he obviously was in training camp last year, he was practicing with the guys. I'm not sure, I think he played preseason, but then he was 11, 12 weeks of not playing football. And when you're suspended, I don't think he was allowed to be in the team facilities, right? So he's not practicing with these guys. He's not being able to get that continuity with his receivers. But this year, it's completely different because he's going to have all of that time to develop. And if he does hit, the Browns could be the dark horse team in the AFC. If he does hit and you have Amari Cooper and Elijah Moore and DPJ and Njoku and all of these guys who are super athletic and can make big plays, and you kind of have a perfect combination of veterans and young guys, this could be a team, because Drew mentioned a top 5 roster in the league, but it really is just dependent on Deshaun Watson. For the Steelers, there's a lot of people who are high on them, and it's safe to be high on them because they're going to win 8 or 9 games. They're not going to blow up in your face. They're not going to have a top 5 pick. But I don't see a world where they get to the AFC Championship game. I really don't see a world where they win a playoff game. Kenny Pickett showed throughout his rookie season he progressed, for sure, right? You think of that first game against the Jets where he came into halftime, threw a couple interceptions, and then throughout the season, when was that Ravens game, he came back and led the game-winning drive, had that touchdown in the left corner. He showed improvements throughout the season. And when you go look at some of his advanced numbers, he had 18 big-time throws, which are 16th in the league, to only 12 turnover-worthy throws, which are tied for fewest with Jalen Hurts. Under pressure, 66% adjusted completion percentage, which was 13th in the NFL. All around, and his regular numbers aren't the prettiest. I think it was like seven touchdowns, 9 interceptions. They weren't that great. But overall, he's just a solid quarterback who isn't going to do anything over the top, but isn't going to hurt you. And the fact that the team around him, specifically on the offense, I don't think it has enough juice to kind of make up for what Kenny Pickett lacks. I like Deontay Johnson. He's a wide receiver too. I like George Pickens. His rookie year was a bit up and down. We look at his advanced numbers like yards per route run, his target percentage, his air yard percentage, a lot of numbers that if you go back historically for wide receivers, those are the numbers you got to hit. He was below average or way below average in a lot of those numbers. And then Najee Harris, who people have this big discrepancy about before the injury and after the injury, and his yards per carry increased. I think went from 3.3 to 4.1. But again, if you look at the advanced numbers, if you look at missed tackles forced per attempt before the injury, or I should say during the injury, was 20.4. Once he was healed, it was 20.1%. His breakaway run rate, which is 15 plus yards, was 2.8 during the injury, 2.4 after the injury. His yards after contact per attempt were 2.7 before the injury, 2.8 after the injury. And these are basically all after the injury, less than what it was his rookie season. So I know a lot of people are high on the Steelers specifically because of Najee, because he could take on that workload. And, after he was healthy, oh my God, he was so much better. But he's still not really this explosive back that could get chunk plays after chunk plays. He's a worker. He's someone that could rip off those consistent 5-6 yard plays, but he's not able to get those big 20, 30, 40 plus yard plays that are going to put you in position to score touchdowns more consistently. I think overall the Steelers team have a really high ceiling. Mike Tomlin's one of the best coaches in the NFL.
For sure.
Obviously, defensively, when Micah's playing and TJ Watt's playing, they could be a great unit. But I look at this AFC and I look at the quarterbacks, and even in this division, you're going to have to make those big plays. You're going to have explosive type guys on this offense. And barring George Pickens breaking out, because he has that ability, he's that typical X wide receiver, I just don't see it with the Steelers.
I understand where you're coming from. I'll say this. After the bye week, the Steelers were 2-6, I believe. We're still able to finish the season 9-8. They went on a little bit of a run. They only lost 2 games after the bye week. Now, there was some decent competition. They did lose to Cincinnati. However, they did beat New Orleans, who's just going to be a tough out just for the fact that their defense is so great. Baltimore's defense towards the second half of the season was amazing. Steelers were still able to steal a win from them. Carolina wasn't an easy out regardless. They were able to come away with that victory. Cleveland with Deshaun Watson back in the final week of the season to put them over 500. They were able to come away with the victory there as well. Now, TJ Watt also missed a good portion of the last season, and it showed with their pass win rate percentage and their run win percentage as well. They ranked, I believe, bottom 15 in both of those categories, and that's really on the fact that TJ Watt just impacts the defense just an unbelievable amount. I don't have to speak about it too much. It's understood how great he is. But a key addition to this offense, to this team in general, was Isaac. Help me out pronouncing his name. Thank you very much. And last year, they were already one of the better pass blocking teams where they ranked 7th in win rate as well. Their run blocking is what was the issue, and Samalu's going to help clean that up. Now, the big question mark with the Steelers is going to be their offensive play caller in Matt Canada. Whenever I talk about the Steelers on this show, that is the number one person that I need to address because he is holding them back, and it was evident last year. And honestly, Pickett towards the second half of the season had to bail them out in some games where they looked atrocious essentially the entire game, and it came down to the last drive, and KP was able to squeak out a W. A few times, honestly, we saw. So I look at this team offensively. There is a lot to look at, and there's a lot to be. Let me not say a lot to be desired. That's the opposite I want to say. This team intrigues me. I look at Najee Harris. I get it. The numbers that you just pulled up, they try to discredit what Najee Harris is. I think he's a very good talent in this league. In my opinion, he's probably
pass catcher too.
No doubt about that. I probably look at Najee Harris. He's probably top 12 to that top 12, 14 range. Fair. That's obviously very fine, especially with this offensive line that I think is going to be a very impressive unit. Deontay Johnson, where last year was really the first year that he really outwardly struggled with drops, he still was one of the highest targeted receivers in the National Football League. KP obviously shows a liking to Deontay. I expect him to have a bounce-back season. And George Pickens, NFL young boy, he is going to fully immerse himself and break out this season. I do firmly believe that we're going to have a Mojo segment a little bit later. Expect to hear George Pickens' name. He's got to be one of those guys that you look at. And Allen Robinson as your wide receiver 3.
I forgot the guy, Allen
yeah,
Robinson.
Dude. Hey, listen, Allen Robinson probably play on the outside. He's not much of a – I mean, I don't know what you can do with Allen Robinson, but as your wide receiver 3, there's definitely worse options, and now it allows some wiggle room. Will you put Deontay now in the slot? George Pickens out in the slot. You can do some versatile things there. And, of course, Pat Freiermuth, who's also one of the better tight ends in the National Football League. The defense, what I really wanted to see improved was their secondary, was the cornerback position. Since the loss of Mike Hilton, they really struggled with that. They go and they bring in Pat P. They go and they draft Joey Porter Jr., who I was very high on during the draft process. Of course, Minkah Fitzpatrick, if you have him as the best safety in the game, I wouldn't really think twice about it. Listen, I'm a Justin Simmons guy, but of course, Minkah deserves that credit. This team is better than I think people give credit for, but I believe that Matt Canada will be the reason why this team is held back. To talk about the Cleveland Browns, this unit is impressive. It really is. And it's all predicated on number 4, Deshaun Watson. If Deshaun Watson is Deshaun Watson that we saw in 2020, this team could be in conversation to be the best team in the AFC record-wise. I do firmly believe that with the talent they have one of the best offensive lines. They have one of the best running backs in the game. Maybe you look at wide receiver 2 as being their biggest need, but Elijah Moore, I do believe in with a quarterback that can actually throw the ball. No slight to your guys' boy.
Josh Johnson.
No, there you go. That's another one, I guess. Josh Johnson, why does he come into the conversation?
No, he threw. That was his best game against the Colts.
I thought it was Flacco. Oh, shit.
I'm pretty sure Flacco might have started and got hurt, but Josh Johnson played that game against the Colts.
Interesting. That's pretty messed up, actually, because Josh Johnson didn't even end the season with the New York Jets. Yeah. And, of course, DPJ, who I am higher on, had over 800 yards last season, so I was surprised to see them be as active in bringing in Elijah Moore. Maybe that's more so because DPJ is coming towards the end of his contract and they don't want to extend him. Maybe Elijah Moore can give them a little bit more wiggle room in terms of financially. However, defensively, the defensive line's unbelievable. Of course, Myles Garrett might be the best defensive end in the game. I probably have TJ Watt. You have to pay him that respect. But last season, Myles Garrett was unbelievable. Dalvin Thompson now gets added to the group. Zadarius Smith now gets added to the group. You mentioned the secondary. I think it's one of the best units there is, really. Of course, Denzel Ward is one of the better cornerbacks in the game. Greg Newsome was awesome last year. And as a rookie, Martin Emerson really was impressive, even though he was targeted a ton. I think he was top 7 most targeted corners in the league, and he only gave up, I think, 50% of those to be receptions. Not a great rate, but as a corner, he still graded out very well. I believe he graded out as 75. As a rookie, that's not bad in terms of coverage. I look at Juan Thornhill. That was a great pickup for them as well. I think just talent-wise, this team is overly impressive, and their success is primarily predicated on Deshaun Watson. You guys know my opinion on Deshaun Watson when it comes to playing the game of football. I still believe he's one of the most talented guys in the league. And the Cleveland Browns, all of their success is on his shoulders, and I think that he'll be up for the task.
I don't think the Browns are one of the best secondaries in the league. I think I can
corner-wise.
I can easily name 5 units I think are better than them.
No, I understand. I understand where you're coming from, especially duos. But Xavier Howard, Jalen Ramsey, that is an amazing duo. Xavier Howard just had his worst season yet. I look at Trayvon Diggs and absolutely understand where you're coming from. Juan Thornhill is not a slouch, and Rodney McLeod also not a slouch by any means also. But, of course, Javon Holland is a dog.
Thornhill's average.
He's okay. Yeah, no, but he was a good add because they definitely needed another safety to add to the group. Thornhill wasn't a bad addition by any means. Gilmore and Trayvon Diggs, that's the unit that I definitely will give you. I'll also give you, of course, Sauce and
Donovan
Reed.
Wilson.
Also, the Saints cornerback duo, that's another one that can be in this conversation.
The Jets easily.
I said the Jets, Sauce and Reed for sure.
The Patriots are better. Their secondary is better.
Who's it? Jones?
Jonathan Jones, Jack Jones, Kyle Duggar. They have
Christian
Gonzalez.
Denzel Ward obviously is one of the better cornerbacks in this game. Gregory Newsome was insanely good. And again, you mentioned it, how he was targeted a ton, but as a rookie, he definitely performed very well. I mean, I look at these groups of corners too, especially.
The Broncos.
The Broncos, I understand that Pat Surtain's the best in the game, no doubt. Quan Williams is not a slouch. He was very good last year, especially because he was targeted because they don't want to throw a PS2. I'm not gonna disagree there, but
the Packers, the Seahawks,
the Niners.
The Niners.
Seahawks
is a TBD.
with Witherspoon now.
But that's is
Jamal
Witherspoon
Adams
gonna be
coming back.
Again, Again, I was saying corners. You keep mentioning the safety guys.
That's a secondary, though. That's a complete vacuum of the secondary.
Fair enough, but strictly speaking about their corners, to have 3 is an absolute luxury in this league.
We'll give you top 7.
Okay, that's fine.
For me, I look
Did
at
I say the best, or I said one of the best?
Yeah.
Okay,
I think you might
so
say
I'll
top
leave.
5 or some shit.
For me, I look at the Browns.
You guys on my nuts?
Yes,
What's going on?
Yes.
Listen, man, the Browns. I'm a little hesitant.
But why?
It has to do mostly because of Kevin Stefanski. For one, I'm not as high
You
on the
started
second.
your monologue saying that they have a great coach.
They do, but he has to prove himself this year because after winning 11,
He proved himself once he gave Baker that season. No doubt. He proved
after
himself.
after winning 11 games, he's gone back-to-back season with 10 losses, double-digit losses. And Kevin Stefanski has been somebody that doesn't play to the strengths of his personnel. When Baker had that down season in 2021, we know that Baker is primarily a quarterback that lives off of play action and under center. Well, that year, Kevin Stefanski was throwing with Baker out of shotgun the most, and it hurt Baker a lot that year.
What's Deshaun's weakness on the football field?
Deshaun Watson is a player that I think needs to be in shotgun most of the time. And when he played, he was under center primarily for a lot of it. Kevin Stefanski loves 2 tight end sets, but they don't have a second tight end on the roster that's really good. They just signed Jordan Atkins, but last year it was David Njoku and Harrison Bryant, who was a rookie, who was a player they drafted a couple years ago, and it's just never worked because he's not a good player. But Stefanski kept rolling out these 2 tight end sets. Now we'll see if with the added wide receiver talent, there is more 11 personnel on the field. But Stefanski, to me, is somebody who hasn't been playing to the strengths of his personnel, and he's somebody that worries me. I think Zach Taylor's a better coach. I think John Harbaugh's a better coach. I think Mike Tomlin's a better coach. Kevin Stefanski is the worst coach in this division. He is.
But this division has great coaches.
Yeah,
like Harbaugh and Tomlin are 2 of the top 5 or 6 coaches in the league.
But in order to win your division, you have to have that coaching advantage, especially if the rosters are similar. Deshaun Watson, he could be as good as Lamar. He could have a season better than Burrow, but will he? I'm still counting on these other guys to have better seasons. So that's why, for me, the Browns, I'm really hesitant on. To talk about the Steelers, this is the year they're not going to be over 500.
I'm just not going to
This
agree.
is the year.
I'm just not going to agree.
Last year, they got 9 wins by this much.
They
It was
clutched,
so
bro.
close.
They were 3-7 at one point and still were able to go 9-8.
This year, they'll win 8 games. I'll give them that respect. Last year, they were one of the least injured teams in the NFL. Their secondary allowed the 8th highest EPA against the pass. They lost Cam Sutton. Yes, you can say they brought in Patrick Peterson. Peterson's not better than Cameron Sutton at this point in his career. Patrick Peterson.
I really disagree, but Pat Pete definitely had a revival year last year.
He had a good year last year, but Patrick Peterson is just not the same right now. You're counting on Joey Porter, counting on a Kello or Levi Wallace. It is, who was a corner for the Bills a couple years back. He's average, and then the linebackers are weak and they're horrible at covering against running backs. Really, this team is predicated on how much Kenny Pickett improves. He won the last 5 games he started. There's definitely a moxie factor when it comes to Kenny Pickett. Last year, he had 4 game-winning drives and 3 fourth-quarter comebacks. One of the best deep ball throwers in the game, and he was phenomenal under pressure. He has definitely an it factor to him.
He does.
But will it show out this year? Is this year the year it's going to take a leap? I don't like Matt Canada at all. No. So, and that's why I think that the Steelers are most likely going to finish last in this division.
Let's pray he gets fired by week 3. I'm praying.
Should have fired him in the offseason.
I don't know why they didn't.
And I think this is an 8-win team. I do. I don't think that maybe they can go 9-8. Would I be shocked? I wouldn't be shocked. But I think eventually a time has to come where Tomlin doesn't finish 500.
But if TJ Watt missed a good portion of last season, they still went 9-8.
Yeah, I understand. But
all right,
I don't think that they'll finish above 500.
They got better than from last year.
What'd you have them going? What do you have them going this year?
I have them going 9-8.
He has going 8-9.
I understand, but again, that's the respect for them. Their schedule is not terribly hard, and honestly, that could go. They could have 10 wins. The Titans and the Packers are the 2 flip-flop games that I have here. So that's why I have 8. I have 8 and 9 because that Titans team. It's hard to evaluate them, and the Packers. until we see Jordan Love and really what he's made of. I'm leaning win preseason, but of course, if Jordan Love comes out the gate and he looks really good with how good the Packers defense is, with the personnel they have offensively, that'll be a good game. But 8, 9, 10 games, that's the Steelers for me. We're going to talk about it a little bit later and talk about their schedule and their record prediction. But 8, 9, 10, that could be the Steelers. I see them. I lean more heavily towards 9 and 10 though. Way more.
Yeah, their range of outcomes is a lot, tighter than what the Browns are, because there's no boom or bust for the Steelers in my opinion. Is there a world you guys see the Steelers being the number 2 seed in the AFC? I would be shocked.
Kenny Pickett has to take a crazy leap.
He would, and he just, even as a prospect, he didn't really,
I was not high on him as a prospect.
Yeah, as a prospect, he didn't really show anything at Pitt. He was 5-year starter, played 5 years. He never really showed anything on tape that made you believe he's going to be one of the best quarterbacks in the game. Definitely got it wrong in saying Malik would be better than him. That's obviously not true.
Sam Howell agenda's still alive.
I do worry a bit, and listen, Steeler fans, you should be high on Kenny Pickett, like Joel mentioned. He has the it factor for sure. There is a bit of concern for me I'm not a Steeler fan by any means, but when you take a quarterback in the first round, you give them chance after chance to prove themselves, and Kenny Pickett to this point has proven himself. Like I said, the raw stats, 63% completion percentage, 7 touchdowns to 9 picks, isn't encouraging, but the more advanced stats I mentioned are encouraging. But I do worry about when you take a quarterback in the first round, and the Steelers, who are kind of all about legacy and heritage and want to do right by their guys, I do worry if Kenny Pickett maybe stays with the Pittsburgh. I'm thinking years down the line. I do worry he stays there too long and other teams kind of leap over them because they have elite quarterbacks. And Kenny Pickett might just be kind of a more mobile type of Kirk Cousins, who is obviously above average, right? You could think of him as a franchise quarterback. He could set records for your team. But when you go into those big divisional games or big playoff game, you're probably going to be at a weakness there.
He already showed it. Big moments.
He's not afraid of the big moments. No, he's not afraid of them.
The offensive line for the Steelers is great. But the tackle spot is a legit concern. Broderick Jones is a rookie. I'm not expecting a lot this year. I'm not.
Tackles usually take a little bit.
Okorofor is the right tackle, and he was bad last year. Yeah. So the tackle spot is a major concern. I don't think anybody offensively, skill position-wise, stands out to me. I think Deontay Johnson's fine. I think George Pickens is fine. But they don't stand out to me. And in the second,
you're not a Georgie P kind of guy?
No, I'm not a George Pickens guy.
I don't know, man. He's got something about him.
And then in the secondary, it's average at best.
Pat Frymuth is a very good tight end.
Their linebackers are below average.
Agreed.
Really, it's the defensive line and Minka holding that defensive unit together, which they've shown it before. Here's something about the Steelers that intrigues me, and I asked this question on Twitter. Would you rather be a fan of the Giants or the Steelers? Now, the Steelers, every single year, they're not going to be below 500. They're going to win 9 games or more, but you also know they will never be in contention.
Never.
In 2020, they were undefeated with Ben Roethlisberger. We all knew they were pretenders. When's the last time we've realistically said the Steelers got a chance this year, man?
They haven't won a playoff game since 2016.
When they had the Killer Bees?
The Killer Bees was the last time, and even then they lost to Tim Tebow.
But that's an error.
Yeah, but that's also the defense was the number 1 defense in the league, and they gave up 316 yards against a guy who supposedly could not throw a football to save his life. That's on the defense. They had a down moment when they were number 1 all season. They also they ended up having to play on the road because they weren't. I believe they were a wild card team that year, even though they were number 1.
You should still win that game, though.
They played the Jags at home.
I remember Jericho Koch.
They lost to Blake Bortles.
Yeah. Oh, are you talking about something different?
No. Antonio Brown, was Antonio Brown that year? No, Le'Veon Bell, that was in 2014.
No, 2016.
I was going to say, that was, no.
2016 was the last time they won a playoff game.
Agreed. But I'm saying that moment with Tebow was 2011.
Oh, Tebow.
Yes.
Oh, sorry. Yes,
that was 2011. I don't know if the Killer Bees were on that team yet.
No, they were not.
Losing to Jacksonville, that was one of those that you could look at. But they put up 35 points because the defense was historically bad. It was funny because they had a great defense and kind of a poor offensive unit. Then they flipped it around. They had Le'Veon, they had Antonio, they had Martavius Bryant. They had an unbelievable offensive line. Ben Roethlisberger obviously was one of the better quarterbacks in the league, led the league in passing yards multiple times. It did not matter. The defense was historically bad. They gave up 42 points to Blake Bortles and company. Of course, they made Leonard Fournette look like the greatest running back of all time. Listen, I think I would rather, and I say this with respect because I do respect and appreciate the Giants and their history of their game. I would rather be around mediocre. My team understand that I won't be trash. I won't be this amazing team, but I've had some runs. I put together some runs. I've had some legendary players on my team as well.
Well, listen, the Steelers, they have not won a playoff game since 2016.
In a while.
Every year, we know they're going to be 500, but they're a mediocre team, and we know they're not going to be serious contenders. The Giants have had multiple seasons of losing horribly, but they've won a Super Bowl more recently than the Steelers. So are you taking steady success or those lows,
give me the Super Bowl.
lows in a Super Bowl?
Here's the thing. They still have 2 since the 2000s.
Before 2010, though.
I understand. They still have 2 in the 2000s. How many do the Giants have post 2000s?
2.
Okay, so what are we doing here?
Well, the Giants have one more
and
recently.
But the Giants also, okay, I guess that's fine.
I think we're saying just take the teams away.
Here's it is. The Broncos have the most recent Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. We haven't had a playoff win since 2016. Mm-hmm. Would you rather be the Broncos, who've won more recently, or would you rather be the Steelers, or would you rather be the Giants, allegedly?
Well, you have Russell Wilson, so I'd rather not be the Broncos.
I agree with that.
Give me the Super Bowl.
I understand where you're coming
pretty
from.
comfortably.
Interesting. So I saw where you had Russell Wilson ranked on your.
I'm expecting to
top
bounce back,
So stop
but
talking.
you have Russell Wilson.
Stop
That's still a
talking.
huge question mark.
Interesting.
Now, you know what's an interesting stat? The Steelers in the last 3 years are third in most wins in the AFC. It's the Chiefs, it's the Bills, and it's the Steelers.
Yes, so again,
and they are
you gotta be
nowhere.
Giants fans.
They are
Again, you're
nowhere
making me
near
just
the
go against the
contention.
Giants.
That just means that I'm ending the season off disappointed.
But I understand where you're coming from too. But would you rather your team be bad or be kind of average?
If I could win a Super Bowl in between those bad years.
Again, that Steelers offense, if the defense was average,
Yeah, but it wasn't.
it was horrific.
I understand. But
They wasted probably
did.
one of the best offenses we'll ever see.
So you'd rather be a Steelers fan than a Giants fan?
I think I agree with that 100%.
Well, I'm kind of taking the teams out of it and just thinking, like, would I rather have the consistently above average team who doesn't win the Super Bowl or a below average team who could go on a run every once in a while? I'd rather have the Super Bowl. But when you're talking Steelers and Giants, both teams that have won the Super Bowl somewhat recently,
agreed.
and the Steelers are more successful,
I agree.
then yeah, you take the Steelers.
That's
but
it. They
in like
have the same amount
in the
since the start
vacuum
of
without the
2000s.
teams, then it's different.
I don't know. I'm looking at the Giants and the season they just had and how gassed up their fans
You just
are.
told me they're gonna win 4 games.
I might take them Giants. I might take that Daniel Jones playoff
Don't you have them
wild
going 4-13
card
this year?
masterclass over anything the Steelers have done in the last 6
Wild card
years.
masterclass.
I obviously look at this Giants
bleed
team.
blue.
Yeah, I fuck with the Giants.
team of destiny.
severely. You're making
Team
me
of destiny.
you're making me disrespect them when in reality you're trying to compare Super Bowls when again Steelers have 2 since the start of the 2000s as well. We talk about them having one of the most prolific offenses that we've seen in recent memory as well with the Killer Bees, Le'Veon Bell, Antonio Brown being one of the best receivers this game's ever seen. Ben Roethlisberger being one of the better quarterbacks this game's ever seen. The defense was terrible. What are we going to do? And they still were prolific in the playoffs. You mentioned it. They haven't had a season under 500 under Mike Tomlin. It's easy. I'd rather be a Steeler fan.
Moving forward, would you rather be a Steelers fan or a Giants fan? Like, I know up to this point.
Me personally, I fuck with
already
the
a
Giants.
Giant fan.
I fuck with the Giants more.
Moving forward, I mean, the Giants being in the NFC is very appealing because you just need to, you need to get past one elite quarterback.
Yeah.
I
understand.
Yeah.
I understand.
I mean, let's be real though. Let's go by talent, right? TJ Watt, easily the best out of the 2 teams. Minka, probably number 2.
Yeah.
I'll respect Saquon, put him number 3. Mm-hmm.
Andrew Thomas.
Daniel Jones clears Kenny Pickett?
I'm definitely taking same tier.
They're same
What
tier.
are we doing? This
No,
guy just won a
Daniel
playoff game.
Daniel Jones coming off the better year for sure, but I don't. Neither. I think both of their ceilings the same.
No, I'm not.
Neither of them's
going
going to be elite.
I know.
Neither of them's going to be elite. They're both. I think both their ceilings is pretty good quarterback.
Darren Waller will be back, and now Daniel Jones finally has a weapon that he can
He's going to be a top
trust.
7 quarterback. Let's be serious.
No, Kenny?
No, that's what I'm saying. Neither of them are going to be elite.
Well, Daniel Jones is what, top 15, top 14
Around there,
range, yeah.
He's in the
I think
teens.
Pickett could be a top 15
and that's been
guy.
without wide receivers.
He's
already one of the best rushing quarterbacks in the
and
game.
now he has Darren Waller,
His
who's injury
offensive
prone.
line stinks still.
And the injury in the receiver in the offensive line's not that much better.
It isn't, and he still continues to be that dude.
Yeah, 1 year.
2 rookie year was good.
Okay.
Bastard.
Now,
25
AFC,
turnovers.
It was a lot, but
28?
24 passing touchdowns.
That was elite.
And Sterling Shepard, God willing, is back this year and healthy.
AFC North predictions. We're going to give our predictions for each team in the AFC North. And, I'm curious to see where you guys have these guys. But before, we get into that. Talk about mojo and players we're investing within the division.
Okay.
Now,
happy you did that.
I'm going with two guys on the Bengals. I'm going with Joe Burrow, who this past season went up 22%. He's only going to continue to go up. And I'm going with Chase Brown.
Okay.
Chase Brown is at $3 right now.
Hey, if you have him on Dynasty, come shop.
Listen, I might ask.
I
might give you a little package, Dehls.
Little package.
1,600 yards last season in college. That was Chase Brown. He's a good runner in between the tackles and has terrific contact balance. This is the reason why I would invest into Chase Brown, though.
Sure.
Joe Mixon last year led the NFL in percentage of runs against light boxes, but of 41 running backs, he ranked 36 in yards per carry, 39th in yards after contact, and 34th in explosive run rate. I think Joe Mixon is entering the latter part of his career where he's going to start declining, and that's a big reason why I think Chase Brown has a big opportunity to take over this backfield this year. If Mixon doesn't fall off this year, it'll be next. And Chase Brown at $3, I think, is very intriguing and can have a Samaje Perine-like role for this offense.
You know my opinion on quarterbacks when it comes to mojo, of course. Now, of course, I was going to come up here and talk about George Pickens, someone who started his mojo career at $6, has worked his way up to over $11, especially with the idea that George Pickens and Kenny Pickett have an obvious connection. And, of course, George Pickens can make some highlight plays. He's definitely special in terms of the hands that he has. However, on mojo right now, Kenny Pickett costs $20. He started a year ago. His price was as low as $12.70. Now, if they continue to if they're around that 9 wins that I have, or possibly even 10 wins, that just means that Kenny Pickett's price will increase. And as long as Kenny Pickett and the Steelers do have success, you'll see that translated over into mojo, especially when it comes to quarterbacks. Mojo is very kind to quarterbacks. And if Kenny Pickett becomes a franchise quarterback, that we've had conversations that the potential is there, then Kenny Pickett's price is going to only increase. We saw it happen last year with Tua and Daniel Jones. I don't know if it's to that degree with Kenny Pickett. However, if there was any candidate to break out among the lower tier quarterbacks, Kenny Pickett would be that guy for me.
And mojo has George Pickens and Deontay Johnson near each other. George Pickens is valued more for the future on mojo.
That makes sense.
It does. And that's really what I did take into account also. In terms of wide receivers, $11 is relatively...
So you think Pickens will be better than Deontay?
No. I think Deontay, with the idea that he definitely sees more targets, he is the more experienced guy. His game's a little bit more, let me not say check downs, but of course that over the middle, exactly. Yeah. That's where he'll still get his love. But of course, in terms of big plays, I definitely would not be surprised if George Pickens had more.
Quarterback's the way to go on mojo. So if I'm picking one, I'm going with Lamar. Right now, he's at $66 between Jared Goff and Derek Carr. He's getting disrespected right now.
That is disrespectful.
It is. Go get Lamar Jackson stock. We talked about it a ton on the preview. He's got receivers now. He's got an offense coordinator that's going to put together a passing scheme that's going to get the most out of Lamar Jackson. He has 2 really good tight ends. Mark Andrews being one of the best in the league. Very high on Lamar. Someone a little bit more low-key. Been high on this guy since the Jets. I think Elijah Moore. This is the year.
Here we go.
This is the
year.
We go. Last season, it was a mess for Elijah Moore, right? Between his rocky relationship with Matt LaFleur, you had bad quarterback play. He requested a trade. He had 10 games of 4 or less targets. He was just someone that really wasn't utilized in this offense. But if you go back to his rookie year, he had multiple flashes. The one that stands out was that Colts game when it was Josh Johnson throwing the ball, Thursday Night Football, had over 100 yards. Elijah Moore, now with an elite quarterback in Deshaun Watson. You have a wide receiver one opposite of him in Amari Cooper. This could be the year he breaks out.
Listen, bro, respect George Pickens. Rookie season, 801, 15 yards per catch.
He's a good player.
I don't know, bro. You were kind of sounding like you were disrespecting him or kind of slighting him.
You just said Deontay's going to be better.
Yeah, I do, because Deontay is... It's not like Deontay's average.
I think Deontay... I think he's a great receiver.
Yeah, okay. So what are we doing?
I don't know if George Pickens is going to be a great receiver. I don't know if he's going to be...
I think that eventually that it could definitely be a torch passing, and George Pickens can be the better of the two.
They're relatively the same age, though.
Agree. Is that true?
Deontay's like 26, I want to say. 25, maybe 26.
It's probably like a 2-3 year gap at most.
He's 22, George Pickens.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Yeah,
because he came out after...
Yeah. He's going into year 2. Yeah, he did come after his junior year.
No, Pickens is good. I'm not disrespecting him
It kind of sounds like you are.
because I'm not saying he has star.
No, you're saying they're
he's
kind
not
of
a
around the
star.
same age. Wasn't true. Called your ass out on that one.
Deontay's what? 25, 26?
I was going to say, Deontay, this is going into year 4 now? Year 5?
Something like that.
Respect Georgie P. Respect NFL young boy.
We're
He
gonna
doesn't
give
drop the ball either.
our AFC North predictions.
Let's do it.
Year 5.
I have the Steelers at 8-9.
Okay.
I have them going 8-9. They're coming in 4th. I have the Browns at 10-7. I have the Ravens at 11-6. And winning the division is the Bengals at 12-5.
Okay, respectable.
I like that.
I have the Steelers and Browns both at 9-8.
Okay.
I do have the Browns one spot above the division record. I have the Bengals coming in second place at 10-7, and the Ravens in first place at 11-6. Tight division.
Okay.
10 wins for the Bengals is criminal.
So I have the I have the Steelers winning 9 games coming in 4th place. I have the Browns coming in 3rd with 10. I have the Bengals coming in 2nd with 11. And then in first place would be the Ravens with 12.
Here we go.
So you're basically telling me that the Bengals are going to fall below their line. Their line is set at 10.5.
I'm sure the under is probably like.
How many wins
plus
do you have the
1
Bengals
point.
at?
I'm 10-7.
Oh, okay. That's calm. I understand where you're coming from.
Tough schedule.
It is a tough schedule.
Yeah.
I like this. The lines for these teams. The Steelers are the only team that I'm taking under. They're at 8.5.
What's the do you know like the odds on the under? Like minus.
I don't know the
150
odds on the
or-
under, but I know that their line is at 8.5. I think they fall below 8 wins. I think they get 8 wins. The Browns, I think it's 8.5 too.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, that's an easy take. I would take the upside on that. The Ravens is 9.5. I think the Ravens are a 10-win team.
It's a lock right there.
And the Bengals
As
are
long as Lamar's healthy.
10.5, I believe. Are 10.5. And I think the Bengals will get 11 plus wins in the
valid.
division. So
I do have
I'm
the
looking-
the Bengals winning 11.
I'm looking at this division. I'm taking an over on every team outside of the Steelers. Outside of Steelers, I'm taking the under on them.
Don't sleep, man.
I'm not.
You're sleeping. You are.
What are they? They're mediocre at best.
I'm not going to disagree there. They are.
If they get into the playoffs, it's going to be a wash game.
I mean, it's
Probably.
every year, man.
Probably.
Every year.
God, that Brown Steelers game was so ugly.
It was.
So bad.
Moving on to the AFC South division, can the Titans challenge the Jaguars
Way less more passionate about this division than I was.
We're
about
getting
the
this
AFC
one out of the
North.
way. Let's be
Yeah.
honest.
for the division crown?
No.
With all due respect to the Titans, I think this is the Jaguars' division to lose. I know you guys are going to talk about the Jaguars heavily, so I'm going to talk about the Titans. The first 7 games, Saints, Chargers, Browns, Bengals, Colts, Ravens, Falcons. There's a chance we see Will Levis after Week 7. They have a Week 7 bye. There's a chance Will Levis will start after Week 7.
Tannehill has to be garbage.
Yeah, or they just have to lose most
They
of these
lose a
games.
lot.
All right, you're thinking.
You know, Saints could be a loss.
Dude,
Chargers
nice.
could be a loss.
Using that brain of yours.
Hey,
Browns can be a loss.
Even though
Bengals can be a
all
loss.
these games are potential loss, because when I went through the schedule, I was like, fuck. But Vrabel, we disrespected him last year too, I remember. They're just not going to start 1-7. I don't know who they're going to be. They're just not going to start 1-7.
Colts
Bro, I had
is
to
a
find a
win.
way to get them
Me
8
too.
wins.
Me
I had
too.
to get them 8-7.
Yeah.
Ravens, Falcons, those are I think they lose to the Ravens. They probably beat the Falcons. Mike Vrabel gets the best out of his team. So that's why I respect the Titans a lot. Even when they're dismantled by injury, Tennessee is 12-12 when they are supposed to lose games. When they're underdogs, they're 12-12, which means, they come ready to play. And last season, the most memorable moments were against the Chiefs. I mean, you went toe-to-toe with them.
Game?
Malik Willis, 5 for 16, going for 80 yards,
That
and
was one of the worst
they were
games I've
still in
seen
the
in my life.
game. And for the division crown against Jacksonville, Joshua Dobbs plays and starts and gives them a chance to the
that
very
was
end
nuts.
to win that game. They signed Al-Shaair from San Fran, Arden Key from Jacksonville. I think those are sneaky underrated signings. Harold Landry is coming back. He's one of the better edge rushers in the game. The problem with the Titans is that
Talk about it.
while every team is zigging, they're zagging
Interesting.
when it comes to their winning philosophy. They are a smash-mouth running football team who's built a good defense, and they try to predicate their team on that and win that way. But when's the last time a team has won like that? It was the 2016 Broncos, and they had one of the best defenses we've seen
Best ever.
of this generation.
It was the best ever.
Tennessee doesn't have that. Since 2018, the Titans have been 31st, 32nd, and 28th in pass rate. Last season, they ran the ball on 62% of first downs, second highest rate in the NFL, and they were 29th in efficiency. It makes no sense because when they passed it on first down, they were top 3 in efficiency, which meant they probably should have passed the ball on early downs more. They didn't do that. I think the shift from Todd Downing to Tim Kelly can improve that, but ultimately, this offense is capped off because Derrick Henry has 1,900 carries in the NFL. He's only getting older. He's 29. The offensive line got worse, one of the worst units in the NFL. And the wide receivers don't look to be a stellar position group.
Respect.
If Treylon Burks breaks out, this receiving core is still mediocre at best.
OD.
I respect.
Not an Okoronkwo? I know you're Okoronkwo.
Okoronkwo is good. I think he's going to be solid, definitely. He's one of my breakout tight end candidates, but I respect Tennessee because Mike Vrabel will always have the team ready to play.
Agreed.
Above expectation. But the ceiling with this team is clear. It's going to be a team that teeters around 500. No one will take as a serious contender. And until they change their philosophy from being a run-first team in a league that has been increasingly pass-heavy, I don't see this ceiling being raised anytime soon.
This Titans team is not one that's going to be fun, if you ask me. I look at the secondary, still not great. Unfortunate for Caleb Farley, who obviously was injured last year, a first-round pick. That's someone who you wanted, if you were a Titans fan, to come in and really bolster this secondary, particularly the cornerback position. That's just really the spot on this team that desperately needs help. Of course, Byard's going to be one of those guys that's one of the most reliable in the secondary, and their main success is predicated off that front seven. The reason why it wasn't a bottom 20 defense was because of how elite this rush defense was. But you mentioned it. The offensive line's not good by any means, whether it's run blocking or pass blocking. Ryan Tannehill is essentially running for his life, which seems like almost every play. Derrick Henry can also do only so much. His yards per carry, just his efficiency, definitely last year took a toll, and probably the worst that we've seen it since Derrick Henry has been Derrick Henry in this National Football League. And that's really due to the fact that, one, they abuse him like no other running back that we've seen in recent memory, truthfully. And then two, this offensive line is not good. I'm hopeful, and I do believe in Treylon Burks and his success this year, but how much time is Ryan Tannehill going to have to get him and push the ball downfield? It's going to be a lot of checkdowns, underneath kind of plays, screen passes, because Treylon is that type of versatile receiver that he's capable of. But really what you want with Treylon is to get him open downfield, push the ball downfield, and with this offensive line, it's going to be very hard to get some push. Now, yes, like you mentioned it, we're going to talk about the Jaguars. And the Jaguars last season, their playoff success is what's propping them up to a lot of individuals this season in terms of early evaluations. I'm wrong. They won 9 games last season. They squeaked in. They won the division at 9-8.
Week 18, yep.
Now, I feel pretty confident that it's going to be relatively similar to how it was last year, where I have them at 10 wins right now. But it's not like they're not over the top in any position. Like, I look at Calvin Ridley and Christian Kirk. That is a very good duo. But how is Calvin Ridley going to look in his first year back? There's a lot of hype behind Calvin Ridley, of course, because of how awesome he was in Atlanta. But they don't talk about how those first 5 games, well, I believe he played 5 games the last time he was on a football field. Yep. He was not nearly what he was the year prior. Yeah. Correct. And then, of course, we do have the suspension. Now, he's been basically gone from football about 2 seasons. So how is he going to look coming back? Of course, it's Trevor Lawrence. We understand that Trevor Lawrence is a top 7 quarterback in this league. Top 8 at absolute worst. The top guys are really good. So, of course, that's not a slight to Trevor Lawrence. It's just respecting the quarterback position. Doug Peterson also coming in, being one of the better head coaches in this league. There's reasons to be high on this team. Travis Etienne was one of the most efficient running backs that there is. The offensive line could be a little bit better, but it's improving year to year. Defensively, the secondary is impressive. Tyson Campbell, Darius Williams. But really, I don't know if this team is one of those that I'm looking to be a runaway in the division. Maybe we look at them as the runaway because the other teams are so underwhelming. And yes, that is why they are going to be my favorites to win this division. But I don't look at this team as one of the dominant teams, a true contender to win the championship. If Trevor Lawrence takes another progression, which is definitely possible, then, of course, then we can start to have those conversations. But just talking preseason evaluation, this isn't an over-the-top roster to me. And with Calvin Ridley It's really a matter of how comfortable, how seamless is that transition going to be from missing 2 years of football.
I look at the Titans and Steelers in very similar lights. They're very similar organizations to me, right? You have head coaches who are kind of the face of their team, right? Obviously, Derrick Henry gets that respect, but when we talk about these teams, it's like Tomlin, Vrabel, they just get the most out of mediocre teams more often than not. Both teams, I think, have talent, but both teams also lack juice offensively. I think the Titans have a bit more with Derrick Henry there. Both teams have good quarterbacks.
They have more juice offensively?
I'm high on Treylon. But Derrick Henry takes it over. Derrick Henry takes it over.
Chica can be better than Muth.
Derrick Henry takes it over the top because he clears everyone.
You're saying the Steelers. I apologize. I'm thinking of the Jaguars. I apologize.
Yeah, Titans facts.
I still don't know.
Derrick Henry just
Chica's not better than Muth.
He could be.
He can be, maybe. But I don't know. I'm going with the Steelers pretty easy.
Then who, the Titans?
Yes. Overall, offensively, I think it's
Give me Derrick
easy.
Henry.
You're
Give me Derrick Henry,
Kyle
Treylon
Phillips.
over Najee,
Listen,
Deontay.
the offensive line clears. It's not even a conversation. George Pickens, Deontay Johnson, that is very firmly better than what they have over there in Tennessee.
Yes,
very firmly.
Don't forget about Robert Woods and Kyle Phillips.
Najee
Woods on that.
Najee and Derek. It would be anything less than disrespect to say it's not a clearing. It is a clearing. Yes, Derrick Henry is, but we have offensive line that's going to the Steelers. We have wide receiver room that's going to the Steelers.
You're right. He is on the
And quarterback, it's pretty damn close at this point in time.
I think maybe slightly.
So Derrick Henry's going to teeter the scale for you over all of that?
You're the biggest Derrick Henry fan in the world.
I love him.
I've seen Derrick Henry get 30 carries in a playoff game and have 200 yards. Najee can't do that.
But he came off the last season was probably his most inefficient.
It was.
So
listen, the age is worrisome.
He was still easily a top 10 back.
He was still fantastic.
Probably top 7 back.
Hey, don't make this sound like I'm disrespecting the king. All I'm saying is Najee's not a bum.
He's not.
But the receiver gap is strong. The offensive line gap is strong.
Derrick Henry down season 1,500 yards, 13 touchdowns.
He's a goat. He's a goat. But the yards per carry really is where shit gets ugly.
4.4.
It's been going down though. I feel like year by year.
The offensive line stinks.
It's horrible. It's unfair to him.
Listen, now the team has great offensive weapons. We could move past that point if it makes you happy.
It's not making me happy. I like the Steelers.
But my last point on comparing these two teams, neither of them have upside. Best case scenario is they're wild card eggs for both these teams, and the Steelers have a much better chance, in my opinion, than the Titans do.
Agreed.
But the Titans, they have an offensive identity, and that identity is give the ball to Derrick Henry 1,000 times a game, let him just beat up the defenders. Hopefully he gets over 150 rushing yards, gets some touchdowns, and that's what's going to be their offense. Passing the ball, it's going to be play action. It's going to be trying to get guys like Treylon Burks over the top to get those chunk plays. But right now, they've been trying different guys out of wide receiver 2, whether it was Julio or Robert Woods, and they really haven't found that wide receiver 2. Now, DeAndre Hopkins overnight went from plus 500 to minus 300 to sign with the Titans. If DeAndre Hopkins goes to the Titans, first of all, it's going to be a bit of a break in my heart because Treylon Burks isn't going to lead the team in targets anymore, but that definitely gives some more juice to this offense. I don't think it's going to be enough to put them over the top in this division, but it definitely gives them a lot more positivity on the offensive side of the ball because they desperately need another guy to get the ball.
Who needs DeAndre to go to Tennessee?
If Hopkins goes to the Titans,
it's
this isn't a debate no more between the Steelers offense and Titans offense.
That's a fact.
Yeah, because they have easily the two best.
And then defensively last year, the Titans were among the best in stopping the run. They were number 1 rush EPA, only allowed 76.9 rushing yards per game. When you have guys like Jeffrey Simmons, Danico Autry, really, as the defensive line standouts, I mean, Jeffrey Simmons is one of the best in the league. That isn't shocking. But their secondaries is where they fall short. Kevin Byard's great. Amani Hooker had a bit of a down season. Their corners weren't great. Christian Fulton ranked 81st in coverage. Roger McCary ranked 72nd in coverage. Sean Murphy Bunting was the only standout, but he was injured. He was in and out of the lineup. I think between weeks 1 and 14, he missed a bunch of games. In weeks 14 on, he did play. But the Jags, they have a better chance of winning the AFC than they do losing this division. I think that's the type of leap. That's the type of leap the Jaguars have this season. Trevor Lawrence came out as a generational prospect. Year 1 was awful. We know what Urban Meyer, what he did, he should be in jail for what he did. God bless you. He should be in jail for what he did to Trevor Lawrence because he got a competent coach and he was phenomenal. We talked about what Jalen Hurts did last year as a jump. Trevor Lawrence had a bigger jump from his rookie year to his second year than what Jalen Hurts did from his second year to his third year.
Payne-esque.
Trevor went from completing 59% of his passes to 66, 214 yards to 241, doubled his touchdowns from 12 to 25, and cut his interceptions in half from 17 to 8. His passer rating also increased by 23 points. Now he's getting Calvin Ridley, who might take some time to get accustomed to the offense, but Trevor Lawrence was just damn near elite without having Calvin Ridley. So he could take his time to getting back. You still have Christian Kirk. Evan Ingram's coming off a career season who's on a franchise tag. Don't think he's going to get a long-term extension, but he'll still be there. You have ETN, another year removed from his foot surgery. And Tank Bigsby, who's my running back 3. There's already talks about saying it might not just be the kind of the hot hand who gets to work. Tank Bigsby might have an actual real role in this offense. I'm very excited to see what he can do because although ETN is a great running back, 99% of teams do not want that workhorse. You still have the Derrick Henrys of the world who are going to take, 80+% of snaps, 90+% of snaps, Derrick Henry specifically. But for the most part, teams are going to want to have multiple running backs. I think Tank Bigsby could be a really good running back too. Defensively is really the only, I think, big area of concern for the Jaguars if they want to kind of get over the hump, be able to beat the Chiefs, and these big guys get to the AFC Championship game and possibly a Super Bowl. They were terrible against the pass last year, bottom 5, but they were top half of the league in terms of points allowed and rush defense. So some of the times you could see kind of like this funneling on defenses where if you're elite in one area, really elite, you could give up in another area because the team's going to go into that week and say, we could beat them passing the ball. We know we can't beat them rushing the ball. So I think that's something you saw from the Jaguars last season. But to speak about the question at hand, what was the question? Can the Titans
challenge the Jaguars?
I don't see it, man. I really don't see any world outside of a Trevor Lawrence injury. He's just going to get better. We don't know the quarterback situation. Tannehill has had good years in the past. This is his worst season out of his time in Tennessee. Will Levis, second-round pick. Malik Willis might not even make the team. There's just too many question marks around this Titans offense that gets me, worried. Vrabel's going to do his best. They'll win about 7 or 8 games. But similar to the Steelers, how I started this monologue, there's just not enough juice offensively to win a ton of games in the AFC.
I think you did a great job propping up the Jags. I think you're a little too low on the Jags.
I didn't say anything crazy. All I said is, they're going to win the division very comfortably. I think that they're going to hover around a game more than what they did last year.
I have no concerns about Calvin Ridley. I don't. And the reason why I don't is because we saw Evan Ingram go from being unplayable,
but he played
one of the worst tight ends in the league.
But he's playing on the NFL field
to a standout tight end.
He played.
That's different. It's not Calvin Ridley's bad.
Calvin Ridley so far.
My issue with Calvin is not his skill or his talent.
Facts.
Calvin Ridley in camp has been showing out to teammates.
So
it's
is
been
Deshaun.
reported. And hey, it's the bounce back, is it not? It's the bounce back for
lower
Deshaun.
On Deshaun.
I'm lower on Kevin Stefanski. I think Deshaun will bounce back just fine. The Jaguars are going to be fine offensively. Really, Christian Kirk,
for sure.
Evan Ingram, ETN,
Tank
Bigsby's going to have a role, especially in the red zone, I think, just because he's a bigger body. And Trevor Lawrence, the improvement doesn't get spoken about enough.
Agreed.
He had the 6th lowest interception rate of quarterbacks with 200-plus attempts.
8 picks.
Now, Trevor Lawrence was the only quarterback in the NFL last year to average a target depth of at least 7.25 yards on 500-plus attempts, but throw fewer than 10 interceptions. Since 2000, there have only been 129 quarterbacks to do that on 8 interceptions or fewer. That's Aaron Rodgers in his 3 MVP seasons, Tom Brady in 2015, Patrick Mahomes in 2020, Derek Carr in 2016, Matt Ryan in 2018 after the MVP season.
Couple of your my guys,
Carson Wentz in 2019, and another my guy, Kirk Cousins in 2021. This is elite company, Dehls.
You're Zach Wilson away from everybody.
This is elite company, Dehls. Now, from week 9 onward, Lawrence was top 10 in yards per attempt, EPA per attempt, and success rate.
He ranked rusher.
He ranked number 1 against man coverage post week 9. Post-week 9, Trevor Lawrence was very comfortably a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. And what he does so well that doesn't get talked about enough is the Jaguars' offensive line isn't good. 100%. It's 31st in pass block win rate. And Trevor Lawrence is just so good at getting the ball out of his hands quick and great at navigating the pocket to where he has a low sack percentage, even with his offensive line not being good. The area of improvement for him all comes down to him throwing under pressure. Under pressure, he was 26 in EPA per attempt, 27th in success rate, and 33rd in yards per attempt. So under pressure is where Trevor Lawrence has struggled. I think we'll get another leap in that department. The only thing I worry about is defense. Because
Agreed.
offensively, I know Doug Peterson's going to have them ready to play.
No doubt.
Calvin Ridley, even if he's not a wide receiver one, as long as you can get comfortable number 2 production, 800 to 1,000 yards with Christian Kirk there, with how Ridley can stretch the field out with his speed, I think they'll be fine. It's just the defense is really below average.
Agreed.
They only faced 5 offenses last year that ranked above average other than KC. It was Philadelphia, the Giants, Detroit, Dallas, and Baltimore. The Jaguars offense can compete against anybody.
Agreed.
It's really just their defense that I don't trust. Their pass rushes are good, but they can't stop the run, and they were 28th in allowing the most passing yards. And I think I might have switched that because I think they were okay against the run, but they definitely need a bigger body in the interior of their defensive line. The defense is the only thing that holds me back from saying, well, this team can be major contenders in the AFC. And I think the issue the Jaguars are going to face moving forward is that they invested so much money to last year's crop of free agents that moving forward, team building for them, even with Lawrence on a rookie deal, is going to be pretty difficult. So I think they're lucky that they're in a great division. They're in an easy division because this division, I think, is easily theirs. I don't see any team coming close to competing with Jacksonville in the AFC South.
Yeah, and last year they were bad against the pass, but decent against the run. Where do you guys think after this season, Trevor Lawrence, where'd you have him in your rankings?
I have him number 6 or 7.
That's fine.
Where do you think after this year he can move up? Can he get ahead of a Justin Herbert? Can he get ahead of a Josh Allen?
Here's
I think
the
you had
unfortunate,
Hurts above
here's
him
the
too.
unfortunate truth. I don't think anyone can dethrone number 1.
Facts.
I think that he's a lock.
He's like
Probably until he retires.
Most likely.
Some shit's gonna have to happen. Maybe the only guy who could really talent-wise could catch him maybe is a Trevor Lawrence. Who knows? Just because of the
Caleb Williams.
the
maybe
potential.
comes up.
There we go. That's another name.
Mahomes got,
But
probably 8
he has
years.
such a lead.
He's probably
he
got
has
8 years
such
to
a
be number
lead
1.
of
Yeah,
being
yeah. 2 Super
just by
Bowls.
number 1 right now. That you probably just look at the ceiling for Trevor Lawrence. He could be number 2 in the league one day. So I think after next season, depending on how great this offense is, let's say it's a top 10, top 7 unit in the league, and of course he's in the contention to be MVP. It's not crazy to have him in that top 4 conversation, maybe even top 3.
Be above your guy Herbert.
No, we won't.
No,
Herbert's number 2.
He's number 2.
Herbert's number 2.
Forgot about that.
The
And
quarterback's
easy with my
over
guy.
him.
Easy with my guy Herbert. It's just I believe in the talent. I believe in the player that
so do
is
I.
Justin Herbert.
He's nice.
That's all I'm gonna
Kellen
say.
Moore there now. Quinn Johnson.
Hey, shit's gonna get spooky, man.
The quarterbacks I have over Lawrence are Hurts, Herbert, Allen, and Burrow.
That's another one. Jalen
Jalen.
Hurts needs that respect.
I think that Lawrence can be above all these guys. I do. I think after next season, maybe Burrow has his spot because of just how prolific that offense is going to be. But he can be over Josh Allen, who's turnover prone. Justin Herbert, we'll see if Kellen Moore elevates him or kind of limits him because
Can I ask you a question?
in Dallas, what?
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I really do apologize for that. Who's more talented in your opinion, Trevor Lawrence or Joe Burrow?
Trevor Lawrence is more talented.
Let me ask you another question, just because we're having fun. It's the off season.
Why not?
What would Trevor Lawrence do in the Cincinnati Bengals offense?
It'd be fantastic.
Yeah, he would be great. I think he'd be a great quarterback, yeah.
Do you think he would be better than Joe Burrow?
No, I don't think so.
No, but you just told me talent-wise he's better.
I think talent-wise he's better, but Joe Burrow, I think, reads the field better than Trevor Lawrence. I think Trevor Lawrence is more talented
He was top 7 in terms of touchdown-interception ratio.
in the second half of the season.
For sure. And then also he went from 17 interceptions in year 1, one of the worst situations in all of sports, let's be real, to being 25-8, which is incredible. With Christian Kirk as his wide receiver 1, Evan Ingram as probably his second most reliable option, a terrible offensive line similar to Joe Burrow. And honestly, if you ask me, I look at the Cincinnati offensive line, might be slightly better, even though, of course, in terms of win percentage,
Both mid.
tomato. However, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins,
Clears.
Goodness gracious. If
Goodness
Trevor Lawrence
gracious.
was in this, it's not even a fucking
I think the
competition.
question is, what would Joe Burrow do in the Jaguars offense?
He would be the same. It would honestly, he'd
Same.
be an
But
MVP
you just
candidate.
told me that you believe Trevor Lawrence is more
You
talented.
put up 39 touchdowns
just 'cause-
with this? I don't
That's
know.
what I'm saying. He would put up 39?
Just because you're more talented doesn't mean you're better. Was Tom Brady ever the most talented quarterback in the league?
It was Rodgers most of the time.
I don't know. I mean, before Rodgers, it was competition between Peyton Manning and him. I would lean Peyton, of course. But that 2007 season, if you said that he's the most talented, who's going to bat an eye at you? No one.
I just think the touchdowns wouldn't be at 39.
And I think that when it comes to Joe Burrow, what's forgotten about is, of course, they drafted Jamar Chase with the 5th overall pick. But before he tore his ACL, he was on his way to have a historic rookie season with a second-year coach in Zach Taylor and a rookie T. Higgins. T. Higgins.
He was nice.
It was nice.
Listen,
nice as
T.
fuck.
Higgins was great. He
And
was
Tyler
great as
Boyd,
rookie.
good as hell too.
Yeah, they were good. But Joe Burrow elevated that team. And
I live to discredit Joe Burrow. man.
outside of 2 games versus the Steelers and the Ravens, the Bengals were in every single game until Burrow got injured.
Definitely.
And it was between him and Herbert of who was having a better rookie season. I think Herbert was having a better one, but Joe Burrow was right up there. So if you're telling me you're giving me Doug Peterson one of the better play callers in the NFL, I think Doug Peterson's a better play caller than Zach Taylor.
I agree.
The Bengals have more talent offensively, but
Significantly.
if Joe Burrow is on the Jaguars with Doug Peterson in a good situation, I think we're still looking at him as one of the top quarterbacks in the league.
I don't disagree. I definitely don't disagree with that statement. I'm not calling him anything less than top 10 if he's in that situation. However, Trevor Lawrence would be in this exact situation, I think, probably a little bit better, to be honest.
You can think that, but that's all
special.
hypotheticals.
Oh, great. Hey, we're having fun. It's the off season. That's
July 12th.
I said we're here to have fun.
I mean,
That's
listen,
it.
overall-
up. Dude, have you smiled once this podcast?
Overall,
Dude,
overall,
what's going
Only when
on?
we
do
talk
you
about
have-
Matt Ryan.
do you-
Goodness gracious.
do you have Joe Burrow
I missed that
above-
smile. I wish I would have seen
do
it.
you have Joe Burrow above Trevor Lawrence?
As of right now, due to the success that Joe Burrow has had, of course he gets
So
that
you're
right.
saying yes. So what's this hypothetical? If you
Hey,
think
listen,
Joe
I
Burrow's
said
better,
if you put Trevor Lawrence in this situation, shit, it would probably be opposite.
well, ultimately, I mean, Drew, you're ranking quarterbacks in a vacuum because
I do like to do that.
if you were ranking
Yeah,
quarterbacks
Herbert
in a
too.
vacuum and you still have Burrow over Trevor
Here's
Lawrence,
the
then
thing,
what
I
you
have to
just
look-
said
here's
does
the
not
thing,
make sense.
I have to look smart and respectful, right? So what am I doing? I'm respecting Joe Burrow for the success that he's had in the National Football League. He's put forward 2 elite regular seasons, and he's put forward some solid postseason success.
Couple good games here
successful
and there.
numbers. Exactly.
Game manager numbers.
Nothing
to be
over
honest.
the top.
Game
Joel,
manager
hey,
numbers.
if I say that, I'm a hater. I don't.
Listen, Dehls,
if I say that, I'm a
listen,
hater.
With all
Dehls.
due respect,
That's what I'm saying.
Listen, Dehls, you
With
would
all
take
due
those
respect.
game
All due
manager
respect.
With all
numbers.
due respect.
Lamar
Call it out
Jackson,
what
how
it
many
is.
playoff was Lamar Jackson?
Hey,
have?
hey,
One
are we
playoff
here
win?
talking?
one.
Dude,
What
are
are
we
we
here
talking
talking
about?
about Lamar Jackson
We're not
being
talking
this?
about Lamar
We're
Jackson.
not doing
Did
that.
I say Lamar Jackson?
Listen,
That's been
you
a
want
leading
to
the
Bro,
playoffs?
why did
disrespect?
he even bring
You
up
want to
Lamar
disrespect
Jackson?
Joe
He
Am I
hurts.
disrespecting?
You want to
Are
disrespect
we
Joe Burrow?
Gets
disrespecting?
hurt.
All I'm saying is that Trevor Lawrence is more talented. That's all I'm doing.
Nothing wrong with that.
That's all I'm doing. Trevor Lawrence is more talented. He
Thought he
is.
said Jalen Hurts.
Oh,
No, Jalen Hurts just might be a better player. That's it.
Nah, he's not.
he's more handsome.
Nah, he's
Oh,
not.
that's a clearing.
Joe
Hey,
Burrow's a
Joe Burrow's a
good-looking
handsome
dude, though.
dude.
He's a real
But Jalen Hurts might be in a
What's your
class
type?
of his own.
Who's your type?
Fair enough.
Like the white boy, light
And
skin.
I
You know what
understand
I
where you're
mean?
coming from.
Listen, Drew,
Light
I
eyes.
understand.
Hey, Jalen Hurts has those too, man. Guy's gifted.
I
Facial
understand
hair.
Drew
Burrow's
has to
got the
save
baby
face. He once called Tua a better quarterback than Joe Burrow.
never did
Thinks
that.
that he
Said
could
he
be better
will be.
career-wise.
Said he
Said
will
he can
be.
be.
Or
Oh,
can be.
listen, tomato,
Can be or will
tomato,
be?
whatever. Will
Said he
be.
can be. Will be.
It's the
Either
same
way.
thing. It's the same thing you're
Difference.
doing with.
Oh, listen, I'll fucking stand on Will
Will
be.
be?
I don't give a
Okay.
flying fuck. Wait till this season when he's MVP. It's gonna be fucking goated.
And listen, man, I understand you got to save face because you've been wrong about Joe Burrow every step of the
I
way.
haven't.
But ultimately, you got
When
to
have
give
I?
your respect
When
to
have
Joe
I?
Burrow.
Talk to me. When have I?
Well, when you didn't have him as a top 5 quarterback coming into last
God
season,
forbid I had him at 7. No,
I don't remember
7.
when I had him.
What the
you
fuck
didn't have
we
him as
doing?
a top 5 quarterback, and you said Tua will one day be better. We all know that's a blasphemous,
not.
idiotic take.
not.
We all know that.
not.
What would Joe
We
Burrow?
saw what happened.
What would Joe Burrow?
We saw. Hey, easy. Hey, we don't have to get rowdy. We saw what happened year 1 when we gave Tua adequate talent.
What would happen if Joe Burrow was on a
I had Joe Burrow
Miami
at 8.
Dolphins right now?
If he was on the Dolphins, he put up great numbers.
It'd be awesome.
What would happen? What would happen? What are the Dolphins if Joe Burrow's on the Dolphins?
They're a playoff
They're
team.
a playoff team.
They're a contender in the AFC. They possibly come out the AFC because Joe Burrow's been the only quarterback to consistently beat
If
Patrick
you
Mahomes.
put Tua Tagovailoa on the Bengals,
Listen,
they're a contender.
If Tua was healthy
No,
against
they're
that,
not.
if Tua was
What are
healthy
you
in the
talking
Bills
about?
game and
You're
the
giving
playoffs,
Tua on the
Jamar-
Bengals?
You're giving him Jamar Chase and T. Higgins.
Listen,
I don't know who you think. I don't know who you think Tua is.
That's what I'm saying.
You know what I'm
no,
saying?
but that's
Like-
my entire point.
I don't know
gave
who
him
you think Tua
adequate
is.
talent. Look at the numbers. He had a couple.
What happened when he faced the
Joe
toughest
Burrow.
stretch of defenses of his season?
It happened. He had a lull. They had to adjust.
He was below average.
He was.
horrible.
Hey, but that Bills game, he was solid. That's
was.
all I'm going to say.
He was solid. He was mediocre.
It was
He was
snowing also.
mediocre.
He left the field winning. That's all I'm going to say.
Joe Burrow actually
Now,
won in the playoffs.
year 1, hey, well done to him. And he just came. The last performance that we saw from Joe Burrow was one of his worst. So also to say this, the first year we give Tua Tagovailoa adequate talent, we see what happens. Now, Joe Burrow was grandfathered into some really good talent, even though they were the number 1 overall pick. T. Higgins was there. Tyler Boyd was there. Joe Mixon was there. Offensive
Chase
line
next year.
Offensive line was due. Then he gets injured. Now they are in a prime position to have one of the best wide receiver prospects that we've seen this game have, Jamar Chase. Now it's a light show for at least another 8 years, probably, assuming that they keep the core together. Listen, I'm happy for them. Cincinnati fans deserve this. I'm not here hating on Cincinnati. All I'm going to say is that when Tua got his due diligence, we started to see him be successful. That's all I'm saying.
What was the Dolphins' record in 2019?
2019? Is that Tua's what?
Actually, what was the Dolphins' record in 2020?
Tua's
rookie season.
Tua started, I think, from week 13 on. I think they just missed the
facts.
playoffs.
What happened? What happened in week 18?
His rookie season?
That was bad. That was the
When
Bills
do or
game.
die to get into the playoffs? What happened in week 18?
against the
terrible.
Bills.
It was
One of the
What
best teams in the
happened?
league.
What happened? What
was
happened?
His rookie season.
How many interceptions did he throw?
He threw 3.
What happened the very
Maybe
next
4.
year versus the Titans week 17?
It was raining.
What happened though? Can you tell me what
His
happened?
offensive
ugly.
line was the worst in the league. He had 3 offensive play callers.
That's not what I asked. I asked what happened.
I'm giving you the
What-
fucking facts.
Dehls, what happened?
Dude.
It was bad.
What happened?
It was
This
raining.
And
You're really
Dehls.
going to ignore that?
Fuck the rain. The coaching was bad.
Thank
The
you.
offensive line was bad.
Thank you.
Didn't have Tyreek.
and
Agreed.
Dehls, hold up.
I'm not hearing the fucking rain shit.
No, I'm with you. That's another factor we
Hold
have
up,
to
Dehls.
take
And
into
what
it.
happened this past season when the Dolphins faced the toughest stretch of defenses the
folded.
entire year?
He folded.
So you tell me,
Against the Bills,
3 years straight.
He was mad good.
3 years straight.
The
Tua
Niners and
has
Chargers
folded
were
in the
bad.
biggest moments.
No, the Chargers, I look at the Niners. That's understandable. The Niners are one of the best defenses in the league. The best defense in the league. Hey,
was missing
he had
open
He
passes.
had a rough game. It is what it is.
What happened against the
Chargers? Inexcusable. Inexcusable.
How many
Against the
passes did
Bills, he
complete
was
against
mad
the
good.
Niners?
Against the Packers, pre-concussion, he was very fucking good.
What was his completion percentage against the Chargers?
Oh my
can you
God,
run
it might have been like 10%.
Did he complete 3?
I remember
I'm
the graphic is
exaggerating.
3 for 14. I don't know what he finished with.
Fuck, was that it?
It was like halftime. He was 3 for 14.
I'm just curious.
No, that game against the Chargers.
It was an all-time.
I block it out from memory.
Yeah, it was all-time.
Yikes.
It was.
I'm seeing 2 or 3 straight years in the biggest moments of the season. You come up short.
They made the playoffs, and he missed hella time.
If Tua was healthy for that Bills game in the playoffs, they could have easily won.
3,500 touchdowns and missed 4
They
games.
almost won with Skylar Thompson.
They wouldn't. Bills put their foot off the gas.
You're giving casual. Don't do that. You're not a casual, so don't give it.
Only casual is thinking Tua is this elite level great quarterback.
Missed 4 games. 3,500 yards, 25 touchdowns. I'm sorry.
Those are Jimmy Garoppolo
Number 2 in
numbers.
EPA to the GOAT, right? Allegedly, Patrick Mahomes.
He's the goat.
What are we doing here?
He's the goat.
In his favorite stat.
Those are Jimmy Garoppolo
In
numbers.
his favorite stat.
The EPA.
No, but hey,
Yeah,
and
Jimmy
Jimmy
Garoppolo.
did
Jimmy
have.
Garoppolo's
he
top
did.
5 in
He did.
EPA.
in 13 games, these were the numbers.
It's what Trevor did in his full season, basically. Little less
Trevor
yards,
Lawrence
though.
is a lock top 7 quarterback. I just need a little bit more respect.
I get it.
Simple.
Hey,
I'm
nah, you
looking,
just need context to understand the numbers. That's
That
what
context,
Because
schmontext.
the context, I think people understand what we have in Tua. Hey, listen, system quarterback.
Well, you've been wrong about Tua.
Whoa.
Nothing wrong. Like I've been wrong about Joe Burrow. You've been wrong about
What
Tua.
the
So
heck?
let's shake hands on that.
I'm not wrong about Tua.
No, you're blatantly wrong.
I've said he's Jimmy Garoppolo.
You said he's not a
system
starting quarterback. No, you said he's
He's
not
a system quarterback. That's
You said
what
he's not a
that's
starting
what Tua
quarterback
is.
in this league.
He's a system quarterback. That's as simple as that.
Can't wait
He
for that
is.
AFC East conversations. They're gonna get nasty.
I'm looking at my QB rankings from last year. I had Joe Burrow at 8. To be fair, had Aaron Rodgers above him, back-to-back MVP, respectable.
And Stafford just came off the Super Bowl.
I didn't have Stafford above him actually. I had Russ above him.
Dude, that's understandable too.
Understandable.
It's
The other
Russell
guys,
Wilson.
Josh Allen, Mahomes, Tom Brady, understandable.
Russell Wilson.
Justin
Last time I
Herbert,
seen
Lamar.
him in the playoffs, very below average.
We're talking about Super Bowl champion. Where's Joe
Carried.
Burrow's rank?
He was carried.
Yeah, similar.
was carried.
Let me
Burrow was not carried.
The
like
comments are
Russell
gonna get
Wilson.
nasty if I even joke about it.
Joe Burrow was not carried to the degree that
He wasn't.
Russell Wilson was carried in 2015.
Let's stop. Like
2015.
Russell Wilson was bad. He was good.
They made the Super Bowl when he threw 4 interceptions in the NFC
He
Championship
threw the
game.
game-winning touchdown.
He threw 4 interceptions.
Okay, and he still came back from that.
Yeah, because of an onside kick recovery.
Okay, and he
Yeah.
still scored.
Yeah, but still.
You're hating.
Yeah.
You're hating.
What happened to Super Bowl?
It's not about how you
was the-
start, it's
what
about how
was-
you finish. Because Trevor Lawrence threw 4 interceptions and still won. We praise him. But why don't we talk about the 4
Because
INTs?
he threw 4 touchdowns in the second
Agreed.
half.
And then
That's
again, Russell Wilson threw the game-winning touchdown in overtime. Why aren't we talking about that?
It's about how you start, not how you finish.
No,
it's
but let's
about how you
agreed.
finish, not start
Agreed.
great. How did Russell Wilson finish in the Super Bowl?
Do a pick.
Get one more.
Is that arguably one of the worst
Play calls
plays
of all time.
No, one of the worst plays, decisions ever?
Let's
Super
be
Bowl
honest.
history?
Listen, great defensive scheme
Yep.
from the Patriots, right? They practiced that in
Shout out
practice
Malcolm-
prior.
Malcolm
Of
Butler
course,
just-
Malcolm Butler, one of the all-time great plays.
Legendary moment.
Listen, let's be real. He just jumped it. That's an amazing defensive play.
It was open. Until it wasn't.
Agreed. And let's be honest, should have never been put in that position to even make that throw.
Shouldn't have been.
It's about how you.
So we're gonna blame Russell, right? Who had an unbelievable, borderline perfect game up until that point. Let's use some context.
How many?
Let's use some context. Oh no, of course.
He gets 50.
Dehls, how many?
50. Come
Play
on.
calling and Russ 50-50.
No.
Dehls, how many?
I'm gonna go as high as 30%.
For Russ,
30%
still
blame.
threw the ball.
He threw it, but it was a decent ball. Again, like you mentioned, he was open. Malcolm, amazing play that eliminates almost 50%.
Oh God.
And then let me not say that. Let's reverse that. More than 50% is on Pete Carroll. And then number 2, just an amazing play from Malcolm. It's going to be in the history books forever.
So Russ is third. It's Pete Carroll, amazing
Malcolm,
play. Russell
Wilson, absolutely. That's obvious.
Guess
No.
it's settled.
Oh, in terms of blame?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes,
for sure.
yes.
I'm just curious. It's about how you finish, correct?
Definitely. Zach Wilson, right?
Hey, listen, Zach Wilson's not in this conversation.
Oh, no, I thought you were going to mention the
career's
Steelers
not finished.
game.
He's not finished. It's in the middle.
I want to apologize. I just pulled a U there, and that was nasty of me.
Ultimately, we talk about the Jaguars. I think Trevor Lawrence can be as high as the second best quarterback in the league.
Agreed.
But it's all going to be really dependent on how much the offense can elevate from last season.
For sure.
If Calvin Ridley can truly come in and be that great of a wide receiver, then this offense has a top 5 ceiling, and Trevor Lawrence can walk himself into that conversation. But really, in the playoffs is where they're going to be challenged, especially defensively. And I don't know if they're a team that can get all the way to the Super Bowl or even an AFC Championship game. Because I look at a team like the Chargers, had they not blown the lead, then we're talking about the Chargers advancing and not Jacksonville. And I think that was a historically bad blown lead.
Here I go getting nasty again. Now, I agree with that, right? I don't see them as a Super Bowl contending team. However, let's say bracket's a little shifted now. Now they're not playing Kansas City in the second round. Now they're potentially playing a Buffalo Bills in the second round. Now they're potentially playing first time?
It's not my phone. I'm on DND. It's not my laptop.
It's not
Anyways.
me.
Oh, dude, someone's phone's going.
It's me.
Dude, are you serious right now? Yeah.
Caught me.
Let's say the bracket's a little bit different now, right? Let's say that you have the Jaguars playing the Bills and or the Bengals. It's not crazy that they can't make the AFC Championship game.
They could
Neither of these two defenses. I'm looking at the Bills and I'm talking about the Bengals. Although
Bengals are tough. I think they get past the Bills. Bills don't move me. They don't.
Bengals is a winnable game.
I'm looking at the Bills, and I just think that Josh Allen, that offense, would torch that defense.
Because here's the idea. Here's the thing, too. We thought that the that the Chiefs would torch the Jaguars' defense. They didn't. It really ended up being a closer game than anticipated. Jamal Agnew fumble, unfortunately, in the red zone, ended up making the game out of reach for sure, just sealing the deal completely. But realistically, it wasn't a complete onslaught that we were maybe anticipating, or some were anticipating. Against the Bengals, against the Bills, I give them a puncher's chance. Against the Chiefs, I don't see it just because Mahomes gets that respect. The defense is only going to get better. It clearly got better towards the second half of last season as well. But against the Bengals, against the Bills, I don't look at these two defense as
that's fair
lockdown that the Jaguars can't put up points. Because I'm with you.
They'll be able
the
to put up
offense is
points.
what's going to get them as far in the playoffs as maybe the AFC Championship. But they're not a champion. They're not a Super Bowl contending team, in my opinion.
A puncher's chance means that you're not giving them much of a chance, though.
I mean,
a puncher's chance. I just see the Bengals just always are so, like, compared to the Bills, just so poised. And you know what I mean? When you saw that Bengals-Bills game from last season, I think I don't remember who picked who, but I remember going to this game, I was like, the Bengals just always feel like the buttoned-up team. They always feel like the team that is like a half step ahead of their opponent outside the Chiefs, even though they're 3-1 against them. The Bills just, for whatever reason, and maybe I'm thinking too much of last year because the year prior they were 13 seconds away, right, from being Kansas City. But it just always feels like the Bengals just have a slight edge on whoever they're playing, especially in the playoffs.
I think the Bengals defense, I don't view that as a game that Jacksonville's just gonna put up points on them.
No, I don't think it'll be
Yeah.
easy. I'm just saying I think that they definitely will have a more sound time putting points up against the Bengals than maybe a Kansas City Chiefs.
There hasn't been a team that has given Kansas City more of a like more trouble than the Bengals defense.
For sure.
And a scheme that has given him more trouble. So against the Jaguars, I think that Lou Anarumo will design something great. He
needs that respect.
Even in the first half, if somethings don't go the way, he's one of the best adjusters in the second half. The Bills defense is somewhere where I'm not that high on them, but their front seven and their defensive front, I think would dominate the Jaguars.
Von Miller,
especially with
coming
Von
back.
Miller being healthy.
Hopefully he's healthy. Of course, one of my favorite players. The game's better when Von Miller's there. The loss of Von Miller definitely changed the landscape of how we viewed the Buffalo Bills defense. Hopefully he's 100% healthy. I'm with you. That definitely escaped my head in the moment.
Trey White should be back 100%.
Definitely,
too.
he was one of those that definitely looked shaky too. But the Bengals, Jesse Bates will be more of a loss than I think people want to give credit to, especially because I look at the just how young the safety group is of the Cincinnati Bengals team. It's worrying to me because I don't overly trust these cornerbacks either.
I think the cornerbacks are fine. Mike Hilton's one of the best.
Awuzie Hilton, they're respectable guys.
Yeah,
definitely could be worse.
Definitely was one of the better corners before he got
No
hurt.
doubt.
You're trusting Lou to scheme up something.
Yeah,
just
it's on
have
Lou.
the
And
opponent
that's what he's
know.
been doing, though. And
I don't disagree.
And Cam Taylor-Britt, he's a rookie that last year in the playoffs, he had some very impressive snaps and plays. Really, Jesse Bates last year was a resurrection for him where he was elite again. But 2 years ago, when the Bengals made the Super Bowl run, Jesse Bates was average. He wasn't one of the elite safeties in the game.
To be fair, that was really his only down year.
It was.
Yeah.
But I think that the safeties are not what makes his defensive scheme. I think
Agreed.
that DJ Reader and how they stop the run and how
It's
the
that
front four gets out of it.
It's that front four.
I think that's what makes this defensive
Respect to
scheme.
Logan Wilson, too.
And Lou Anarumo, I think, makes it simple on his guys to understand what spots to be. So I think as long as they play disciplined, they'll still be a top defense. And, their defense that they just have, Lou Anarumo just has great game plans against offenses that he goes up against.
I don't disagree.
And the Jaguars is where it's not a complete football team in the fact that the offense is going to be great, but the defense is going to be their Achilles heel of the team, where teams are going to put up points on them. And
how many points? Well, listen, let's talk about it. The Jaguars' defense against the Chargers. I know we're getting a little bit off topic, and I'm sorry, guys.
Oh, you're good.
The Jaguars' defense against the Chargers locked up. They really did. Herbert was not effective in the red zone. There was multiple times where they held them. No, I'm talking in the first half too, where they held them to multiple field goals. Second half, it was complete clamping.
That's true.
But in the red zone, they stopped them to multiple field goals. They definitely started to put it together. And against the Chiefs, my memory is failing me. I'm gonna look it up really quick. Did the Chiefs put up over 30 points?
is that impressive to you though?
27.
Stopping the Chargers?
Yeah, like offensively.
I
don't think that's
I would say yes, especially in the red zone, because 9 out of 10 times, what's happening in the red zone if you're facing the Chargers? Austin Eckler's getting the rock, and you trust him to score.
20 touchdowns.
He did have, I believe he still had 2 touchdowns in the game, if I'm not mistaken, something
Probably.
like that,
Yeah,
just
they
because
scored
he's
30
Austin
in the first
Eckler.
half.
But regardless of that fact, anytime they were in the red zone, the Jaguars made it difficult. They forced multiple field goals, and they still were able to come back and win that game, especially after being down 27. 27-20, the Jaguars and Chiefs game. If you hold the Chiefs under 30 points, it's gotten to that point just to how special that offense is. They were in this game. A fumble from Jamal Agnew made this more of the Chiefs were able to comfortably win this game. But the Jaguars' defense, especially in the playoffs, played a lot better than what it is on paper. And I understand where you're coming from because I'm looking at it on paper too. It's not an overly impressive unit, but they performed in the playoffs.
But even with the Chargers, though, Austin Eckler is not efficient as a ball carrier.
Just in the red zone, he's one of the most effective.
In the red zone,
it's
he'll
Derrick
get an
Henry,
open lane.
definitely some notches. Austin Eckler.
But from a down-to-down basis, he's not an efficient back. And the Jaguars had one of the best run defenses in the NFL.
Yep.
Really, the Chargers' offense, I don't view as an offense that I'm overly impressed by if a defense can scheme up well against them.
This upcoming season with
This
Kellen
upcoming season,
Moore?
yes.
Okay. Word.
But like this past season with Joe Lombardi and how simple
they
the offense
were one of the
was.
most conservative offenses when you have a quarterback, one of the biggest arms.
It's also because Mike Williams did get hurt that week prior against the Broncos when he shouldn't have even been playing. Keenan was Keenan for
the game? No, for the playoffs he was healthy.
Got
yeah,
it. Yeah, I was going to say Keenan came back and he was unbelievable. One of the most effective receivers, especially once returning after injury. Mike Williams getting hurt, of course, that was brutal. Austin Eckler, you mentioned it. They didn't use him not nearly enough as a rusher, especially seeing him in the pass game. They did not do that either. So the Jaguars still were able to capitalize and definitely halt that Chargers offense because Austin Eckler has been one of the more effective running backs in the league these past couple of seasons, 40 touchdowns in 2 seasons. And Keenan Allen was dominant once returning from injury. Mike Williams definitely was missed.
And then with the Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes rolled his ankle very early in the game.
That's true.
Second quarter.
Very true.
And that really halted some momentum. You had Chad Henne came in.
Well, he missed how many drives?
I think he missed one at most.
He missed one
Chad
drive.
Henne drive.
Yeah, it was that last end of the half.
And I think Chad Henne scored. But throughout the game, though,
quarterback. When are we going to talk about it?
Throughout the game, though, Mahomes.
How many points did they score, the Chiefs?
27.
throughout the game, the Mahomes was very clearly hobbled, and he still played like a picture-perfect game for his standards.
There's a reason why it's very hard to disrespect this man. One, of course, he's coming off a Super Bowl, but then two, he did it on top of having a high ankle sprain.
And per sources, the quarterback documentary on Netflix starting to move you about Mahomes. They're starting to like him.
I had to turn it off. Just like, God, he's so great. I just can't. I'm done.
Yeah,
I have to keep this narrative alive.
Listen, man, it's gonna be your Tom Brady.
Will Anthony Richardson or CJ Stroud have a better rookie season next year? And I feel like this is really a Colts versus Texans. Which foundation do you trust more question?
Mm-hmm.
I look at the offense, 4 position groups: running back, offensive line, receiver, and tight end. I think that this is split 2-2. I think the running back goes to the coach, Jonathan Taylor. The offensive line, I'm going with the Texans. They have a better offensive line. Indy was 32nd in pass block win rate, dead last. Houston was 17th, but in run block win rate, the Colts were slightly better at 23 compared to the Texans' 27th. And the Colts really left tackle and the guard position are just huge weak points. Bernard Raymond, Will Fries. The Texans don't have any weak point that sticks out dramatically, so that's why I think they're a better offensive line. Wide receiver goes to the Colts. I think Pittman is the obvious standout. And the tight end is the Texans with Dalton Schultz. I think, he definitely clears Mo Alley Cox, Jelani Woods, and those guys. Jelani Woods, listen, he's a physical freak specimen. They also drafted Will Mallory, somebody else who tested very well in the combine.
Related to the Mallory bros?
No, he's not. No. And defense, front 7, I got the Colts. Secondary, I got the Texans.
Okay.
So it's really split between defensively, it's split. But I'll be honest, man. I think the reason why I'm leaning with Anthony Richardson having a better season is because of all the first-round quarterbacks that were drafted. His pressure to sack rate is the lowest. His pocket navigation for how little he's played the position, I think, is special. His talent is undeniable. I think he has more talent than CJ Stroud. And Shane Steichen has worked with back-to-back quarterbacks and has maximized them. Justin Herbert, Jalen Hurts. Anthony Richardson going to be one of these other guys that has these physical tools that Shane Steichen just maximizes. He'll be a force in a running game. Maybe CJ will be a better passer his rookie season, but I think Anthony Richardson will have more of an impact on his team offensively.
Okay, I like that. I think Anthony Richardson is in a better position to succeed his rookie year because of Shane Steichen. I really like, out of all of the quarterbacks, all the quarterback parents, I do think this is the best, maybe not best, but in terms of offensive scheme with the quarterback.
Frank Reich and Bryce Young doesn't.
It's up there too, but we know Shane Steichen, what he just did with Jalen Hurts, he's going to want to replicate
100%.
basically exactly what he's want to do with Anthony Richardson. We know that he's going to come in here and it's going to be a lot of running the ball. He has the mobile quarterback. He's going to be using Anthony Richardson's legs to his advantage and not for whatever reason, because we see, coaches do this all the time, not playing to their players' strengths. We know that Anthony Richardson is going to be in a good scheme and a scheme that's going to get the best out of him. And when I look at these weapons, while neither team is weapons galore, neither team has a true wide receiver one, Michael Pittman, Alec Pierce, Josh Downs, Jonathan Taylor, and an interesting tight end room. Jelani Woods had some flashes. He's athletically one of the most athletic tight ends we've seen with his size, like 6'7" or whatever. So I think the weapons are more than good enough for Anthony Richardson to have a successful season. And I don't think for Richardson, a successful season might be what other rookie quarterbacks, especially CJ Stroud and Bryce Young, successful season would be, just because Richardson hasn't played nearly as much of them, right? He has one full season starting under his belt in college. So he's still extremely raw as a quarterback. When you have Bryce Young, who played 2 seasons, started 2 seasons in college. You have CJ Stroud, who played 3 starting seasons in college, 2 or 3 starting seasons at Ohio State. These guys are by far the more, polished, especially passers. Well, Anthony Richardson still has some growing to do. But when we were scouting Anthony Richardson, he was, a lot of the numbers, raw numbers you saw weren't really reflected on the tape, right? His completion percentage was under 60%. But when you saw him play, he had good ball placement. He was able to lead guys. He had touch, and the pocket navigation was honestly second to none. Bryce Young was definitely up there too. He had great pocket awareness, but Anthony Richardson's ability to not only navigate the pocket, but make guys miss, whether it's just having the athleticism or just being straight up stronger, because he's going to be up there in terms of weight with a lot of these linebackers, and not so much defensive linemen, but just as strong as these guys, especially his base. He's such a huge, large, athletic quarterback that's going to be able to make things happen with his legs. And I know Drew mentions all the time, there's a bug right there. Should probably fucking destroy that. He's a large dude.
Oh, dude, it's a daddy long one. Oh, no, I think it's a centipede.
Okay.
Dude, I'll rip it right now.
Or take care of that. First responder Drew. There he is.
I don't know how you spotted that.
Bro, I saw it walking right past. So Anthony Richardson, Drew mentions all this time. A rookie quarterback, typically all of them struggle, right? It's very rare for a quarterback to come into this league and just have instant success. But when you're able to rush as good as Anthony Richardson does, it's going to give you time, because we know it takes years. It took Mahomes, I think he said, till year 3, where he was able to read defenses and really be the type of quarterback he is now.
Insane.
Richardson's not going to be able to come in week 1, be able to make adjustments on the fly, read defenses, pick up blitzes, the different adjustments they make at halftime. It's going to take time. It's going to take years, really, for Richardson to be able to fully understand that. But he's going to be so gifted as a rusher, and I think Steichen's going to put so many good either rush plays, RPOs, options, whatever it might be, on his plate to get him in rhythm early in the games, to build his confidence, that we'll see the progression over time as a passer. So I'm really excited for both of these quarterbacks, but I think Richardson, his marriage with Steichen in this offense, is going to have a really successful rookie year.
So really what it comes down to for me, really simply, is Anthony Richardson's rushing ability. I feel like automatically that would put him in positions to be successful, where if he doesn't love what he's seeing on the field as a passer, he has the athletic ability to just take off and be already an immediate game changer just because of how athletic he is and how great of a rusher that he can be. Now, I look at Michael Pittman, and you mentioned it already. I think that he is by far the most trustworthy option at the wide receiver position. And then on top of it, he also does have one of the best running backs in football, period. But of course, out of these two teams, Jonathan Taylor, where Dameon Pierce deserves respect with how bad the offensive line is in terms of rush block, Dameon Pierce is definitely successful. Jonathan Taylor is just a different breed of running back. He has the ability to be a pass catcher as well, and if Anthony Richardson is in some trouble, he can just dump off to Jonathan Taylor and let him do his thing. Now, I think that Shane Steichen definitely is going to aid Anthony Richardson in the best way possible. You mentioned already he's worked with Jalen Hurts. He's worked with Justin Herbert. These are two of a top 5 quarterbacks, in my opinion, already. Jalen Hurts solidified himself. Justin Herbert came into the league and proved that he came into the league and put the league on notice. Just hasn't had the playoff success yet, which is why people don't rate him as highly as others. But regardless of that fact, I think Anthony Richardson does have the tools to be successful. I look at Michael Pittman. I look at Jonathan Taylor. I just think that it's a little bit more easier for Anthony Richardson in year 1 to have success as opposed to CJ Stroud, where CJ Stroud is a really good prospect. There are some things to look at with the Texans and be happy about. The offensive line definitely isn't bad by any means. Dameon Pierce is a solid piece. Hopefully John Mechie can suit up finally. Then I believe they brought in Robert Woods this year too as well. You have Dalton Schultz. That would be a reliable option for CJ Stroud, no doubt. But I just look at the Colts as a whole. Yes, the offensive line may be that great, but when you're an elite rusher, or can be an elite rusher, which I believe that Anthony Richardson can be, it will not be that huge of an issue. He can scramble outside the pocket and hopefully not throw the ball away, not being that decisive, but really try and utilize his athletic skill set and push the ball downfield with his legs.
I think the advantage Anthony Richardson has is he has an offensive-minded coach. And
For
CJ
sure.
Stroud, your OC is Bobby Slowick. We've seen the West Coast offense succeed in different places, but there's really only a couple coaches that can maximize quarterbacks when they run it. We've seen Kyle Shanahan do it. We've seen Mike McDaniel do it. Bobby Slowick is somebody who wasn't as well known as Mike McDaniel coming into this spot. He reminds me a lot of Mike LaFleur in this regard. And Mike LaFleur is somebody that he was under the Shanahan tree, but when he went to the Jets, we can say Zach Wilson, we can point the finger at him all we want, but ultimately the scheme that the Jets ran wasn't good. And regardless of the quarterback
Zach
play,
Wilson's in another situation, man.
I know he would have been amazing. Regardless of the scheme that we ran or the quarterback play, Elijah Moore was vocal about the lack of offensive
Sure, that's
creativity with Mike LaFleur, and they got into a lot of heated exchanges. I think Bobby Slowick is better than Mike LaFleur, but I think there's going to be an adjustment period because this is not the same offense that CJ Stroud's coming from with Ohio State. Ohio State's very, very spread, very air raid. So that's why I think there's going to be more of an adjustment period where Shane Steichen, I think, will fit the offense more to Anthony Richardson, where CJ Stroud has to be more in tune with how Slowick likes to run his offense.
Never forget when the Jets are filling out their offensive or their coaching staff when we hired Saleh in our Jets group chat, and they're like, what are we going to do when Mike LaFleur gets a head coaching job? Like, we need an offensive mind. That day came
Let me ask you a question. Pep Hamilton, he's not the offensive coordinator anymore, correct?
QB coach?
No.
Right? He's not on the staff anymore.
Pep Hamilton, I forgot where he's at.
Because he was the Texans quarterbacks coach in 21 and then got promoted to offensive coordinator in 22. I would have liked to see Pep Hamilton work with CJ Stroud just because, of course, we saw him his rookie season with Davis Mills. Davis Mills was serviceable to the point where they thought that he could be their quarterback. He obviously wasn't that answer.
He was the head coach for the XFL DC Defenders. More recently.
Yep.
Yeah, so he's not. I don't think he's coaching right now.
No.
He's not on the.
That's
Texans
what I was
staff.
wondering. Interesting.
Yeah, I mean that entire staff is D'Amico Ryans, brand new.
That's his guys.
It's coming from the Shanahan tree, so
Which is
it makes
understandable.
sense.
Definitely.
Yeah, that's why I trust the Indianapolis coach a little bit more. To get into the AFC South predictions, I have the Jaguars at 11-6, the Titans at 7-10, the Colts at 6-11, and the Texans at 4-13.
This guy went 1-4, by the way. Just letting you know, he went 1-4, 1st to 4th.
Last time we did 4-1.
We did.
I like 1 through 4.
This one isn't
better.
as.
No, it's not crazy. I understand.
You're gonna go 4-1?
I just criticized him for going 4-1.
did?
I feel like I have to go 1-4 now, though. Fuck. All right. Number 1 coming in first in this division will be the Jaguars, without a doubt. I believe I have them going 10-7, potentially 11-6, but I feel more confident in that 10-7. We'll see how that defense improves from last season. Of course, I have the Titans coming in second place. I have them 8-9 or 7-10. I feel more confident in the 8-9 for the sole fact that I respect Mike Vrabel and his abilities as a head coach. He seems to get the best out of his players, even if the players aren't the strongest in talent. Number 3 in the division is close, dude. I have these teams finishing at similar record, either 4-13 or 3-14. I feel a little bit more confident in the Colts offense as opposed to the Texans offense. And then the defense, it's very close. You're 100% right, Joel. I look at the secondary of the Texans. I think it's stronger, but I feel like front 7 definitely can get after the quarterback. I'm going to go the Texans coming in 4th place. I'm going to have them finishing with a record of 3-14 and the Colts finishing with 4-13 record.
I have the Jags in first place, 10-7, and 10-7 kind of feels like their floor as long as everyone stays healthy. Wouldn't surprise me if they got 11-12 wins. Titans in second place, 7-10. Colts in third, 6-11, and the Texans in 4th at 5-12.
Dude, I don't know how you were as generous to get the Colts 6 wins. The schedule is difficult.
They'll win games.
Will they?
A handful.
They didn't win games last year.
I know they got better.
Did they?
Anthony Richardson.
They lost
Jonathan
Stephon
Taylor healthy.
Gilmore. The offensive line's still mid.
Yeah.
I agree Anthony Richardson will definitely do a better job.
They had Jeff Saturday coaching the team in
Yeah.
the second half of the season.
Steichen definitely makes a huge difference.
Jeff Saturday.
I mean, for me, I think that the Colts.
I'm gonna
How
go.
many wins did you have
I'm
the
gonna
Colts?
have.
The 6. I think they
I'm
beat
gonna have
the
both of them.
Texans.
I'm gonna have both of them finish with 4 wins. So I don't want to have to decide between 3rd and 4th. It'll be a dogfight between the two of them for 3rd and 4th.
Dogfight for 3rd and 4th.
Exactly.
They're going to split between the Titans and the Texans, so that's 2 wins. I think they can beat the Rams. I do think they can beat them. I think they can beat the Panthers.
Let me ask you a question: are the Rams gonna go winless?
No.
Nah.
No.
So I mean, but who are the Rams gonna beat then?
They'll lose a handful of games.
They can
Yeah.
beat the Colts.
They'll win around 6 games too.
They could beat the Texans.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Twice the life.
I think
they'll go either way games.
the Colts can beat the Bucks.
I
Yep.
agree. The Bucks are a team that
Dog shit.
definitely can beat.
They
dog
can
shit.
beat the Raiders.
Yep.
I think the Falcons is a toss-up.
Yeah.
Probably
But,
the
you know,
Falcons,
it can
but
go
yeah.
either way. I favor the Falcons, though. I think the Steelers, too, you know. I don't think that's just an easy win for the Steelers. I think it's going
not
to be
an easy win.
competitive.
I mean, the Colts-
Steelers are home.
The Colts beat the Chiefs last
Colts
year.
are home.
Colts are more.
Right? Colts beat the Chiefs. Still ended up with 4 wins.
Yep.
I'm
That
just
was
saying.
nuts.
I'm just saying.
And I think I said the Panthers already. I think
Yeah.
they can beat the Panthers, too. So those are
don't know.
wins that I think I can give them.
Panthers were definitely oddly competitive last year. The
Frank Reich revenge game, though.
There it is.
I guess it can be, or it can be.
They definitely improve in the coaching
or
department.
Or is it the Jim Irsay revenge game?
Yeah, or it can be. Listen, this is why we fired you.
Steve Wilkes took over last year for the Panthers.
Yeah.
Frank Reich definitely is an upgrade, but Steve Wilkes, credit to him, he definitely held it down when they fired Matt Rule. I will say the defensive unit of the Carolina Panthers, sneaky, absolutely.
Colts.
And then offensively, TBD.
You lost DJ Moore.
TBD. That's why I say that.
Yeah.
Hey, Jonathan Mingo. We'll see.
It's Adam Thielen, Terrence Marshall, Jonathan Mingo. You probably favor the Colts.
Yeah, for sure.
That's why I think that's either way. So I think I'm generous enough to give them 6 wins. Their line is at 6.5.
You are being generous.
Yeah, their line is at 6.5, which means that I think they fall under that line. I think that's a bit too high. 7 wins for the Colts next season. I think Vegas is a little bit high on that.
How many wins would they have then, Matt Ryan?
It could go for 9, 10. Which Matt Ryan are we talking about?
You tell me. I
We're
don't know.
talking last year's Matt Ryan.
Last year's Matt Ryan, you're cooked.
I think it's a respectable 7-9-1.
7-9-1.
Yeah, I think it's respectable.
That's wishful thinking.
Mojo, I have investment for each team. For the Jaguars, it's quite clearly that Calvin Ridley. He's priced lower than Christian Kirk, which means that he's very undervalued. Calvin Ridley at his best is better than Christian Kirk. The Titans, it's Chige. The Texans, Dameon Pierce, I think, can have a big season.
I like that a lot.
And the Colts, it's either Jonathan Taylor or Anthony Richardson. Taylor had a down year, so he can bounce back. And Richardson, I like his price more than CJ. CJ, I think, is at like $44 plus, where Richardson is at $33. I like that price a lot for AR. So those would be my Mojo investments if I'm investing into one of these players.
Dude, I respect you having a Mojo player for every single team. I'll say this. I do like your Calvin Ridley Mojo selection a lot. I obviously did state that I do have my worries. I feel like Tank Bigsby would be that one guy that I look at. Maybe that would be my investment on the Jaguars. Still wouldn't hurt to invest into Trevor Lawrence.
No.
I think Trevor Lawrence can be a $100 guy there. That is for a select special group.
He's at 63.
I think that Trevor Lawrence can be that guy. That is still over a $30 jump, almost $40 jump. You will definitely have some return there. I'm with you on Anthony Richardson as well. Still underpriced for a quarterback, especially for what his potential can be. Michael Pittman with Anthony Richardson now. Michael Pittman still was under. I believe that Michael Pittman after last season has become underrated. I believe now that with Anthony Richardson, someone that will actually not fear throwing the ball to him downfield, we'll look at Michael Pittman as one of those guys. Tennessee, Joel, I don't want to steal your guy. The answer is Treylon Burks, though. That is definitely someone that I would look to invest. And then with the Texans, these aren't guys I love, but maybe John Mechie as long as he suits up.
Nico Collins,
agenda. People still believe in that. It's understandable, but I feel like John Mechie, as long as he suits up, he'll definitely be a reliable option for a CJ Stroud, especially young into his career.
Who's the tight end? Blanking on his name.
Dalton Schultz.
No, backup. Who you're high on last year?
Tegan Quinton.
I know who you're talking about.
Brevin Jordan.
Brevin Jordan. There it is.
Dude, I get it. I'm not going to say that was crazy.
Listen,
he looked good with Deshaun. He looked good with Deshaun.
Yeah.
But honestly, I do think with the Texans, it's one of two players. It's Dameon Pierce or CJ Stroud.
You're not worried about Devin Singletary taking some work?
Oh, come on, man.
He was solid.
Let's be serious.
Dude, you're not a John Mechie guy?
John Mechie's just coming off an injury that I don't know.
No, he had cancer, man.
Yeah.
Understandable.
Yeah, like hopefully everything's okay, but investment-wise, I think the safe route is Pierce and Stroud.
Now, Pierce, I get it. It's the running backs, though. You have to be productive.
Yeah.
But with CJ Stroud, I'm looking at him and saying that
Like, really productive.
If his rookie season is underwhelming, even a little bit underwhelming, the price will probably drop.
Buy the dip!
You can buy the dip going into next season.
You'll probably
where
get a
they're
wide
more
receiver
established.
one the year after.
Let's look at CJ Stroud's price real quick.
I think it's like $46.
That's high.
Yeah.
Who's
42.
Who's
That's
around?
42.
Give me 1 second. I got you. Dude, $42 is pricey.
Bryce Young
All
is
right,
a bit
so
over him.
CJ, he costs more than Tua.
I was just gonna
What
say,
the
isn't
fuck
Tua
are we
around?
doing?
Yeah. Yeah, that hurts.
No, don't buy CJ Stroud.
Sell him.
Don't buy
Or short
him.
him.
Wait.
Okay.
Okay. Because he's not gonna play up to $42 standard. He's gonna dip a little bit. Buy the dip. I'm here on buy the dip.
Is this just a plug to buy more Tua stock?
Dude, $41. It's a fucking crime.
It is OD.
It's a crime.
I respect all of you guys having a player for each team. There's only one,
Dude,
man.
have one. Traylon.
Just Treylon.
Respect the fuck out of that.
Treylon Burks. Listen, rookie season, bit disappointed, but I feel like anything that could go wrong did go wrong. He had asthma in training camp. He gets hurt like week 4 of the season. He comes back against Green Bay,
good.
has that 8 catches, 111 yards. Then week 12 puts a 4 for 70 and gets hurt again.
Got laid out.
Then the Eagles game was week 13. He had that 1 catch for the touchdown where he I don't know how he caught that ball. Gets absolutely blasted. Concussion, comes back like week 17. It was a really rocky season, but
he's here.
They're saying in training camp he looks faster, he's slimmer, he's leaner. There was a story out there that he had to get like a private plane to make it to OTAs because there was no planes in his area or some shit. Very high on Treylon Burks. He'll never die.
There are moments to be hopeful, for sure. And that's what you're clinging on to.
Joel loves Treylon Burks so much that he traded a first-round pick, multiple seconds, a future first, and Jerry Jeudy for Treylon.
I traded.
Did you get the future?
I got the first. I got a first in Treylon for Jeudy, and I think it was like 2 seconds.
Yeah.
Listen, later tonight we're going to talk about Chase Brown.
Chase
We're going to talk
Chase
about
Brown.
Chase Brown.
I like that a lot. You know I'm high on Chase.
You're talking all this shit. Come shop, man.
Chase Brown, you got my guys. Chase Brown, Romeo Dobbs.
Facts.
You got 2 of my guys.
Let me talk to the audience real quick, and I think that we should dabble into a little fantasy conversation, maybe in the future. But, of course, here we are. I offer my good friend Joel Dehls over here a couple of second-round picks for DeAndre Swift. He's saying I'm being stingy and greedy.
No, I'm not.
I'm wrong.
I said I wanted first.
He's losing me. Is a first-round pick worth DeAndre Swift right now?
For you,
yes
maybe.
or no? Maybe.
He's on
For
the
what you
Eagles.
think he's gonna
I've heard
be.
offense.
I do love him.
Pass catcher.
Dude, I think 2 seconds is valid. Let's do it.
Yeah, but I would just rather have the running back depth. I'm trying to win a
But
championship.
you'll take the first-round pick. Like, what are we doing?
Yeah, I would. It's a first-round pick.
Listen, Eagles
Second
offensive
round,
line's
first
elite.
round.
We
Olave
know-
was a second-round
We
pick
know,
in our
but
draft.
we know when we're going into trading with someone else, 2 seconds, a first holds so much more valuable
But
than
I'm
2
giving
seconds.
you 2 seconds, not just one.
2 seconds in a trade does not hold nearly as much
2
weight
seconds
as
you
one
can also
first.
use as leverage with another individual.
I already have 3 seconds next year.
That's where we had the conversation sold.
Listen, I understand why you want him. I understand why you don't want to sell him. DeAndre Swift behind the Eagles offensive line. I mean, the worst running back in the league can succeed behind that offensive line.
Is Miles Sanders going to be good in Carolina?
They have a good offensive line
Yeah.
too, so probably.
Deontay Foreman was good. Every running back was good.
Solid. He's been solid.
Who's their third string? They had another guy.
They had somebody else that was productive.
Yeah.
Chuba Hubbard?
Chuba Hubbard, yes.
Was it
Chuba Hubbard and Deontay Foreman were both productive without CMC there when he left.
Yeah.
So the Panthers' offensive line was great. That's why I drafted Miles Sanders in Dynasty.
I know, I liked it.
Yeah.
Like, he got a big contract too. He's gonna be there for at least 2 years.
He's somebody
so
they're going to
funny.
utilize.
It's really hilarious. My team clears your guys' team.
Sucks.
H-Town legends, man. We're here.
Not my receivers. My receivers are deadly.
Receivers are nice.
My
AJ Brown,
my
T.
receivers
Higgins, McLaurin.
They got a little youth, got a little
Don't sleep on
experience.
Drake London.
I got Jamar Cooper Cup.
Drake London.
And Amari.
That is
Jamar Cooper
gas.
Cup. It's unbelievable how you got that.
Holy shit.
Cup was the 4th round pick. That's why.
Huh?
4th round. Started the 4th. Yeah.
Holy shit.
In our league?
Yes.
Wow.
I was going to say a foul shit.
He went because it was the 2. John was before me. Took Tay, and before that was Olave.
Holy
I wanted one of
shit.
those 3. I was like, give me Tay, Olave, or Cup. I got Cup.
That's a steal. I'm going to look back in the draft and see who I drafted at round.
So
round three.
you were after me in
Now,
that one.
I took JT and Brees
Yeah.
over Cooper. I can live with that.
That's valid.
I can live with that.
I might have taken Kenneth Walker.
You didn't take Walker in the 3rd, did you?
No, it might have been the 3rd or the 4th.
You took AJ before I took JT. That shit hurted bad. I
'cause
took
you had Hurts,
yeah,
yeah.
I took Brees. Did you take a receiver again?
Took
I
Burrow
don't know,
round
'cause
1,
I took
AJ
Joe
round
Burrow,
2,
AJ.
Pollard maybe round 3.
No,
I did
no,
not
he
take
didn't get
Pollard.
Pollard. Jared has Pollard.
I wanted Pollard.
Oh right, you were trying to trade for him.
Yeah.
You have Kenneth
That's-
Walker, Miles Sanders. So wasn't that?
Dude, if you went
Wasn't
Kenneth Walker in the
Terry-
3rd, you're fucking nuts.
I'm going to look. How do you search that
I
up?
got you, bro. Don't worry about it, man. I got you, man.
Who's your second quarterback?
Aaron Rodgers.
It wasn't Rodgers. Who's your tight end? Not anyone.
Darren
great.
Waller.
Yeah. Who the fuck's taking 3rd round?
It might have been Kenneth.
T. Higgins.
Oh,
T.
I guess that's
Good pick.
cool.
Good pick.
Valid.
Should have definitely won Cooper Cup, though.
Over T.
I had no idea Cooper Cup was that low.
He was there
Didn't.
on the board as hell.
Yeah, T. Higgins, man. My receivers are stacked. They are. Because I'm projecting. You know, when T. Higgins, if he leaves Cincinnati,
Why would you want him to leave Cincinnati?
Should I have taken Drake London?
because they
or
can't
Kyle
pay
Pitts?
everybody.
I would probably take Pitts.
All right, cool.
I'd rather have the tight end than the receiver, and they both have high upside.
The only other person I was thinking was Kyler. We'll live with that.
Drake London's going to have that.
Geno
breakout year this
Smith,
year.
QB2.
We're here.
I'm him.
And that's going to do it for this episode of the
Had a
Pick a Side
fun-ass time. This was
podcast.
Yo, I'll tell you what, we've had some good podcasts. You know, you necessarily have fun every podcast. I wouldn't say we have fun every
sometimes
podcast.
sometimes you don't.
This was fun.
We talk about
I had a
Damian
fucking
Lillard for
ball.
4 weeks
It's
in a
the
row.
first time we've talked about NFL in a long time.
That's maybe what it is. Maybe I really missed it more than I let off.
And I'm kind of curious, does the audience want us to talk about the AFC more? Do they want us to transition to the NFC South for the next NFL episode?
I don't think anyone wants to hear us talk about the NFC South.
Or the NFC in general.
Okay.
Because we're going to do 2 divisions per episode. This one was the AFC South and North. So next episode will be the AFC West or East, which that's going to be loaded, jam-packed, or the NFC East and West, and then North and South.
Couple things before we close. Listen, make sure you guys go subscribe to the Patreon. We're dropping exclusive content over there. Of course, Joel already mentioned at the beginning of the show, the merch. Look at how fly my boy Joel Dehls looks. Look at how handsome my brother Joel Moran looks. And, of course, your boy. I look stunning. I know. You don't have to tell me, but I take it anyway. Regardless, we appreciate you guys. Whoa. Take it easy there, all right? Let's wait till we end the show. You're nuts. We appreciate you guys tuning in. Again, Patreon. Go subscribe for the exclusive content, especially when we talk about Summer League.
You guys can follow us on Twitter at PickAsidePod, on Instagram and TikTok at PickAsidePodcast. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you next time.